You know the year is somewhere in the late 14th century. Across Europe, towns are swelling with people, and London alone counts tens of thousands of souls within its walls. Records show that taverns, alehouses, and inns dotted nearly every street, sometimes one for every few dozen households. They were more than drinking places. They were vital to daily life. Without clean wells or reliable kitchens in cramped urban homes, the tavern became the hearth of the community, a place to find warmth, food, news, and sometimes danger. But these were not the comfortable pubs you imagine now. Fires smoked, floors turned slick with ale and mud. The air could reek of sweat, damp wool, and tallow candles. Strangers crowded elbow to elbow, and tempers could turn sharp as easily as the knives tucked into belts. To step inside was to risk both comfort and conflict, and yet you went because life outside was colder still. The stakes were simple here. You could find a meal that kept you alive through the winter night. Here you might hear a rumour of work or bargain for passage, or simply claim a bench to keep from freezing. For a weary traveller, the tavern door mattered as much as a church door, sanctuary of a different kind. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It directly supports the channel and keeps these long journeys alive. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you listening from, and what time is it there right now? Now, settle deeper into your blankets. Let your breath slow, and together we'll slip into the journey. You stand before the heavy oak door. Its surface is scarred with knife marks, as if generations of bored hands scratched while waiting for entry. The iron handle chills your palm, colder than the night air clinging to your cloak. You push, and the hinge protests with a groan. Inside, light flares. Not steady light, but a wavering dance from rushlights and torches wedged into iron brackets. Shadows leap across low-beamed ceilings blackened by years of smoke. The glow catches the faces of strangers who glance up at you, then return to their cups. The smell strikes first. Warm ale, faintly sour, heavy with malt, meat broth, bubbling in some unseen pot, seasoned with herbs you cannot name. Beneath it all, the musk of damp cloaks steaming near the fire, the acrid edge of tallow, and the sour tang of unwashed wool. You inhale, cough once, then adjust as your eyes begin to water. You move forward, boots slipping slightly on packed earth scattered with rushes. These stalks, laid to mask filth, crunch softly underfoot, carrying the faint scent of hay and something sharper, less pleasant. A hound lifts its head from beneath a bench and growls low before deciding you are not worth the effort. Your ears fill with sound. Wooden mugs slam onto tables, dice rattle against worn oak, laughter bursts sharp, then cuts off at a muttered curse. Somewhere near the hearth, a string instrument whines in half-tune, ignored by most. The voices are many, yet they blend into a single rumble, like surf against rock, only broken by sudden peaks of cheer or anger. You notice a group of men pressed close at one trestle table. Their sleeves are rolled, forearms scarred from labour or fighting. One rolls dice, swearing that the throw is cursed. Another shouts for more ale. Their laughter carries, but you sense the edge beneath it, the quicksilver change that might end in a fist or worse. Closer to the wall, two women sit together. Their hands are red from cold, their kerchiefs pulled tight. One shares a hunk of bread, the other dips it into a mug, softening its stale crust. Their voices are low, almost lost beneath the din, but their eyes flicker toward you for a moment before turning away. Behind the counter, if you can call it that, stands a woman with strong shoulders, an alewife most likely, a wooden paddle in one hand, a ledger or tally stick in the other. She pours from a ceramic jug into mugs with a practiced arm, then with the same motion swats at a drunk who leans too far across her space. This is her realm, and she guards it fiercely. Records from city rolls tell us women like her were common, brewing and selling ale to keep their households afloat. Yet sermons and court cases hint at the suspicion they endured, accused of watering ale, of disorderly conduct or worse. You feel both respect and wariness in her presence. You edge nearer to the fire. A cauldron hangs over it, suspended on a chain, its lid rattling faintly. Steam seeps from its rim, carrying the mixed scent of meat, onion, perhaps cabbage and pepper. It could be anything, really. Chroniclers wrote of perpetual stews, cauldrons never emptied, each day topped with whatever scraps arrived: rabbit, chicken, bread crusts, herbs from a garden patch. You imagine the taste, rich one evening, sour the next, a gamble with every spoonful. As the heat warms your face, you remove your gloves. The wool is damp, and your fingers sting as blood returns. You think of your own world where you might press a button for warmth, boil water in seconds, or choose bread soft and fresh from shelves. Here, warmth is a gift you earn, and bread often comes dry, tough, and shared with 3 others. A man in the corner raises his mug in your direction. His hood hides his eyes, but you feel the weight of the gesture. You nod back, uncertain. Is it an invitation, a warning, or nothing at all? In tales, this is where the stranger leans close with a quest. In truth, it may be where trouble begins. You turn your face toward the fire again, letting the crackle of wood drown the unease. A log shifts, sparks leap upward, and for a moment the tavern holds still. Then a mug shatters, laughter erupts again, and the world flows on, pulling you deeper inside. The air thickens as you step farther from the door. Behind you, the night chill fades. Before you, the tavern's warmth turns oppressive. Torches spit and crackle in their brackets, resin hissing as it burns, filling the room with shifting bands of light. Shadows lengthen across the walls, stretching and twisting with each movement of flame. They merge with the smoke that pools along the rafters, so dense you can almost taste it. Your throat tightens, and you swallow against the irritation, wishing for a gulp of clean air that will not come. You squint as the light catches the haze. Faces swim into view, then vanish, blurred by smoke. The torches do not illuminate so much as they confuse bright glares here, deep darkness there. One man's grin seems almost ghostly before he turns away. A dog skulks along the edge of the wall, a streak of fur slipping in and out of torchlight. In the gloom above, you think you see rafters crawling with shapes, but when your eyes adjust, you find only dangling herbs, sage, thyme, rosemary, hung to dry where heat and smoke will cure them. Your lungs labour. Each breath drags in soot, yet you cannot escape it. This is what medieval taverns smelled like. Chroniclers mention that travellers often complained of the stench, the mingling of bodies and smoke, and though some taverns were fined for poor ventilation, most did little to improve. Why should they? Air was a luxury, and smoke at least kept flies away. Still, you cough again, eyes watering, and rub them with your knuckles. The rushes underfoot shift as someone passes. You glance down, stems flattened, stalks splintering into dust. A rat darts across the floor, disappearing beneath a bench with practiced ease. You are not alone in noticing. A child squeals and points, only to be hushed by his mother, who presses a hand over his mouth. The family has no choice but to stay. Better a rat's company than the streets. The walls here are timber, darkened with age. The plaster between beams shows cracks, patched with clay and straw. It feels close, as if leaning in on you. And yet the space is alive. Tables groan under the weight of mugs and elbows, every bench full. You press sideways to slip through, your shoulder brushing wool, leather, sometimes bare skin damp with sweat. A hand claps your arm, friendly perhaps or careless, and lingers just a beat too long before releasing. You move faster. A group of travellers has taken the table nearest the hearth. Their boots are heavy with mud, their cloaks lined with grime, but their purses must be heavy too, for pitchers stand before them. One man laughs, voice booming, as he slaps another on the back. The sound carries over the din, and for a moment all heads turn toward them. This is how power shows itself here, in volume, in confidence, in the willingness to take space. You edge past and nearly collide with a serving girl balancing a tray. The mugs rattle, spilling froth onto her wrist. She mutters under her breath but does not stop moving. Her hair is tucked beneath a kerchief, her sleeves rolled, her hands red from the chill. Perhaps she is kin to the alewife at the counter, or perhaps she works off a debt. Records are unclear. Some women served freely, others were forced by circumstance, and still others were accused of less honourable trades within these walls. You wonder which story belongs to her, but she is gone before you can guess. The heat builds. Your chest feels weighted. Your temples throb. You push a hand against the nearest post, its wood slick with oil from countless touches. For a moment, the world tilts. This is what chroniclers hinted at, how suffocating taverns could become packed past reason, lit by torches that devoured air as greedily as the patrons devoured ale. Some accounts even describe patrons fainting, carried into the night for air before returning once steadied. You steady yourself now, breathing shallow, letting the dizziness pass. A voice cuts through the haze, a minstrel perhaps, or only a drunk with a song. The melody is uneven, words slurred, yet the refrain catches half the room joins. Some mocking, some earnest, you catch fragments. Ale so brown, love so fleet, and though you do not know the tune, it drifts into you like smoke, settling in your chest. It is not beautiful, but it belongs here, stitched into the air with the torch's hiss. The song ends in a cheer, then in laughter as a man stumbles, sending his bench skidding. The torchlight catches the moment. The man's flushed face, the glint of spilled ale, the sudden flare of anger in his neighbour's eyes. For an instant you tense, expecting a blow, but the anger fades. The man rights himself, bows clumsily, and all returns to its uneasy rhythm. You wipe your brow, moisture clings to your skin, not from heat alone but from the press of bodies. This is what draws people here. You realise, not comfort, not cleanliness, but company. Even suffocation is easier together. Alone outside, the cold can kill. Inside, at least, there is warmth, if you can bear the air. Your gaze lifts once more to the torches. Their flames gutter, throwing sparks, resin drips and sputters, falling onto the floor where it smokes against damp rushes. Someone stamps it out with a boot, barely glancing down. Fire was always a risk here. In towns, whole streets burned from one careless spark. But you see no fear, only indifference. People have lived too long with fire to tremble at it. Now, a thought crosses your mind unbidden. In your own world, light comes at a switch, pure and silent. Here it is alive, unpredictable, devouring as it gives. You wonder if you would trade the still glow of a lamp for this wild, smoky dance. Perhaps not. Yet without it, this room would fall into darkness, and the tavern would vanish with the night. The air grows heavier still, pressing at your chest. You shift again, seeking relief. But the tavern has no escape. You glance toward a narrow window covered by oiled cloth. No breeze enters. Only the torches rule, and the smoke obeys them, curling in lazy, suffocating swirls. A bell strikes outside, muffled, distant, marking some hour you cannot know. The sound filters in through the door, the only reminder of the world beyond. Inside, time thickens, as heavy as the air itself. You close your eyes for a moment, breathing carefully, waiting for the smoke to thin, though you know it never will. The sound finds you first, the clink of wooden mugs duller than metal, yet sharp enough to rise above the rumble of voices. A rhythm emerges, the slam of a tankard on oak, the scrape of a bench against the floor, the sudden chorus of laughter that follows a clever jest. Every tavern had its own music, and this one plays in clashing notes. You pass a table where three men raise their mugs in unison. The gesture is not polite, but exuberant. Foam sloshes over their knuckles, drips onto the floor. They drink deeply, heads tilted back, Adam's apples bobbing. The smell of malted barley rises with the steam of their breath. One coughs as he swallows too quickly, sputtering, but none around him pause. The mugs return to the table, and dice scatter across the wood. You glance at your own hand, still empty. A thirst creeps in, sharpened by the heat of the room. The thought of ale presses against your tongue, though you know it will not taste as the ales you have known. Medieval ale was different, brewed without hops in many regions, quick to sour, often consumed within days of making. Records show households brewed their own, but in towns and taverns, ale wives sold it fresh, ladled from jugs or poured from casks kept behind the counter. Strength varied wildly. Some ales were thin, hardly more than flavoured water, others rich and intoxicating. No label warned you of potency. You learned only after the second mug. You step closer to the counter. The alewife catches your look, nods once, then fills a mug with a practiced tilt of her jug. The stream foams, pale and uneven, catching bits of yeast and grain. She sets it down with a thud, the wood scarred by countless mugs before yours. Her hand lingers for the coin, and you place it down. How much? You think of wages. A labourer might earn a penny in a day, and here a penny buys more than one mug, affordable but enough to empty pockets, if thirst or company carries you too far. You lift the mug. Its rim is rough, the wood swollen from years of use. You sip. Warmth spreads instantly, not just from heat, but from alcohol. The taste is raw, malty sweetness balanced by a faint sourness. No hops to cut through, no bitterness to anchor. Instead, it feels alive, yeasty, unfinished. It foams against your lips, coats your tongue, and slides down in a rush. It is not pleasant in the way you expect, yet it satisfies something older, deeper. The room shifts as you swallow. Sound grows closer, brighter. A man's laugh feels sharper. The lute in the corner clearer. You wonder if the ale is stronger than you guessed, or if your senses have simply accepted the tavern's world. The second sip confirms it. Already your chest eases, your shoulders loosen. Perhaps this is why men and women alike came here, night after night, not for flavour, but for release. Nearby, a woman dips her bread into her mug. You blink at the sight, then recall records describing the practice. Ale softened stale bread, turning it edible again, much as modern folk dip biscuits into tea. The woman chews slowly, eyes half closed as if savouring both sustenance and intoxication. For her, the mug is a meal. Two men argue across from her. Their mugs slam harder with each word. They speak of prices, grain, rents, taxes. You catch only fragments, but the bitterness in their tone needs no translation. Each slam sends a wave through the liquid, a splash onto the table. Their debate is not new. Court rolls are filled with tavern quarrels, disputes over land, debts, insults. Some ended with reconciliations sealed in drink, others ended with blood. Your hand tightens around your own mug. Its weight is oddly comforting, anchoring you amid the swirl of sound. You think of your own time again, of bottles lined in neat rows, labels promising consistency, safety, regulation. Here no such promises exist. A bad brew could sour the stomach. A watered mug could cheat you. Inspectors known as ale conners sometimes tasted to check quality, pressing leather breeches against ale-soaked benches to test for stickiness. But tonight, no inspector is here, only you, and the uncertain trust between patron and seller. A cheer rises behind you. You turn. A man toasts loudly, voice carrying across the hall. His words slur, but his grin shines in torchlight. He raises his mug high, and others follow, mugs knocking together with hollow thuds. For a moment the room unites in that sound, a chorus of wood against wood, as if all difference vanishes in drink. Then the moment breaks, the cheer fragments into laughter, mutters, silence. But you remember the rhythm, the heartbeat of the tavern, carved in mugs. Your ale dwindles. You sip slower, letting the warmth spread through limbs chilled by outside air. The mug leaves a sticky ring on the table when you set it down. You wipe your hand against your cloak, then regret the gesture as damp wool clings to your palm. Around you, others do not mind. Their hands are sticky, their sleeves stained, their mouths wet with foam. Cleanliness is no concern here. Survival is. Another rat scurries underfoot. No one notices this time. You realize the tavern is not judged by modern measures of hygiene or flavor. It is judged by fullness of mugs, by noise of laughter, by warmth of bodies pressed together. By those standards, this tavern thrives. A man offers you another mug, already half full, thrust into your hand without question. You hesitate, glance at him. His face is broad, his beard patchy, his smile too wide. You nod. Take it. To refuse would be an insult. You sip. The taste no different, yet shared, it feels heavier with meaning. This is how bonds form here. Not with words, but with mugs passed hand to hand. Your throat warms, your ears hum. The tavern grows brighter, the torches less harsh. You wonder if you should stop, yet you do not. The mugs clink again, and you join, your sound merging with theirs, a note in the tavern's endless song. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It directly supports the channel and keeps these long journeys alive. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you listening from, and what time is it there right now? You edge nearer to the fire, drawn by the promise of warmth and the steady rhythm of bubbling liquid. The hearth is the heart of the tavern, its glow pulling everyone inward. Sparks leap upward, dancing against the smoke-stained beams. Heat presses against your cheeks, drying the dampness from your cloak. The cauldron dominates the scene, iron, blackened, suspended on a chain. It sways slightly each time someone brushes past. The lid rattles softly, as if the stew inside breathes. Steam coils into the air, curling into the thick haze that already clogs the rafters. You inhale, and the scent envelops you. Meat, onion, garlic, herbs, something faintly sour. It is a stew that holds centuries within it. Not by age, but by tradition. Chroniclers wrote of the perpetual stew, a pot never emptied, each day replenished with scraps, bones, and herbs. A chicken one night, a rabbit the next. Cabbage leaves, stale bread, sometimes fish, if Lent demanded it. The flavours mingled, shifted, deepened, and sometimes soured. To eat here was to gamble with taste, and sometimes with health. Records hint that some tavern-goers fell ill, their stomachs undone by whatever lingered too long. Yet others swore by its richness, calling it the most filling meal they knew. You imagine the hands that have stirred it. Thick wooden ladles, scarred by heat, dipped again and again. The alewife herself, her sleeves rolled, sweat on her brow, pushing scraps beneath the simmering surface. Children helping, dropping carrots or onions from baskets. Guests leaning too close, hoping for a whiff of meat. The pot never sleeps. It is fed as faithfully as the hearth fire. A man approaches with a bowl. He waits without speaking, his coins ready. The alewife ladles stew, steam billowing as she pours. The bowl brims with chunks of meat floating beside turnips, their edges soft. He carries it away carefully, shielding it with his arm from the jostle of bodies. You hear his spoon scrape against wood, then his satisfied sigh. Hunger for now is answered. Another figure takes his place. This time a boy no older than 12. His clothes hang loose, his hair unkempt. He produces only a thin piece of bread, holds it out with pleading eyes. The alewife studies him, hesitates. She dips her ladle, scoops only broth, pours it into a cracked bowl, then nods for him to go. He accepts without complaint, tearing his bread into pieces, soaking them in the thin liquid before slipping away. The contrast lingers with you. The stew is not the same for all. Wealth buys meat, poverty accepts broth. Your own stomach stirs. The air is thick with hunger now, every whiff teasing. You step closer. The heat grows harsh, but you bear it. The alewife glances at you, weighs your presence, then plunges her ladle deep. She serves you a portion, steaming, uneven, alive with scent. You take the bowl, its rim chipped, its wood warm. You raise it to your lips. The steam fogs your vision. The broth scalds your tongue at first, then spreads, savoury and sharp. A bite of turnip follows, soft and sweet. A strip of meat, perhaps mutton, perhaps something less certain, chews tough but fills. You swallow, and warmth courses down, deeper than ale, steadier than fire. It is nourishment in its rawest form. You recall how some sources speak of spiced dishes, rare and costly, saffron, cloves, mace, pepper, flavours reserved for nobility, for feasts. Here you taste none of those luxuries. Only salt, onion, garlic, herbs from a nearby patch. Yet there is comfort in it, even in its plainness. You think of your own world again. Instant meals, neat portions, flavours predictable. Here each bite is surprise, sometimes pleasant, sometimes grim. Would you trade certainty for the depth of this unpredictability? The question lingers as you eat. Around you, others slurp from their bowls. A man wipes his mouth with his sleeve, burps loudly. A woman dips her spoon again, her child leaning close to steal a bite. An old man gnaws on a bone, his teeth scraping, his eyes half closed in satisfaction. This is community, forged not in words but in shared hunger. The stew binds them, as surely as the ale binds their voices. You hear a story whispered at the hearth. A man claims he once found a ring in his stew, lost from some cook's hand days before. Another swears he tasted fish in a bowl meant for meat. Such tales are told with laughter, half believed, but they carry truth. The pot swallows everything. Surprises surface as often as turnips. You smile faintly, though the thought unsettles you. What might your bowl hold tomorrow, had you lived here? The fire crackles, and you shift closer. The heat licks your boots, threatens to scorch your cloak. You rest your bowl on your knee, blow gently before the next sip. The broth glistens in torchlight, fat rising to the surface in small shimmering circles. You dip your spoon, lift, taste again. Each mouthful is different, a reminder that nothing here is uniform, not even food. Suddenly, a commotion. A man near the hearth shouts, slams his bowl down. He spits onto the floor, curses that his portion was spoiled. The alewife storms forward, her face set. She lifts the bowl, sniffs, shakes her head. With a single motion she hurls the contents into the fire. Steam rises, hissing, filling the room with sourness. The man grumbles but sits, cowed by her authority. Others watch, murmuring, then return to their own meals. Discipline is swift, survival sharper. No one risks alienating the woman who controls the pot. You spoon the last of your portion. Scraping wood, hunger eases. The noise of the tavern swells again, bowls clinking, spoons scraping, voices rising. Your belly feels heavier, your limbs warmer. The fire roars, the cauldron bubbles, and the night presses on. You set the empty bowl aside. Already you feel its absence. You know you will crave it again, not for taste, but for its steadiness, its promise of survival. The pot is endless, until the day it is not. Records tell us some cauldrons boiled for weeks, even months, but all depended on coin, on trade, on harvests. A failed crop, an empty purse, and even the perpetual stew faltered. You imagine the silence of a hearth gone cold, the pot still, the tavern quiet. The thought chills you more than the night outside. The alewife returns, ladle in hand. She stirs, lifts, drops. The surface ripples, steam rises. The smell renews itself. The pot lives on. For now it is eternal. You breathe deeply, letting the scent fill you, as if to anchor yourself here. And then, somewhere beyond the fire, you hear dice rattle against wood. The sound sharp, quick, insistent, Laughter follows, then shouts. The tavern shifts again from hunger to chance, from stew to steaks. You look up, drawn by the new rhythm. The pot bubbles still, but your eyes turn toward the tables, where fortune and ruin play out with every throw. The sound of dice draws you across the room, sharper than laughter, sharper even than the crackle of the fire. Wood against wood, ivory against oak, a rhythm of fate, rolling and colliding, unpredictable as the flames themselves. You follow it, as if tugged by a thread, weaving between benches, past elbows and mugs, until you reach the cluster of men hunched close over a table. The surface is scarred, with deep grooves cut from years of knives and cups. Coins glimmer faintly in torchlight scattered across the wood. A few copper pennies, a clipped silver groat, even a foreign coin, its face unfamiliar, perhaps brought by a merchant from Bruges or Bordeaux. The stakes are not high by noble standards, but here in this smoky hall, they could mean the difference between a warm meal and an empty stomach tomorrow. The dice tumble. Small cubes, bone-carved, edges worn smooth. They clatter, spin, settle. A chorus of voices erupts. Cheers, groans, accusations. One man laughs too loudly, sweeping coins toward himself with a broad palm. Another slams his fist, rattling the mugs. A third leans in, eyes narrow, muttering of cheating. The room leans with them, tension vibrating like a bowstring. Games like this were common in medieval taverns. Court records brim with fines for gambling, for unlawful games of hazard, tables and cards as they emerged. The church railed against them, calling them the devil's work, temptations leading to ruin. Yet the rolls show how impossible it was to stop. Men gambled in alleys, in guild halls, on ships, but most of all here, where ale loosened purse strings and dice promised fortune. The game shifts. They move from hazard, pure chance, dice against dice, to tables, the ancestor of backgammon. A board appears, its surface marked with lines, its pieces worn smooth. The players set them quickly, practiced hands moving in near silence compared to the chaos before. Now the game blends chance with skill, dice dictating moves but minds steering toward victory. You watch, captivated. One man bites his lip, his brow furrowed. Another grins, confident, sliding his piece with a flourish. The crowd murmurs, placing side wagers of their own. Beside you, a boy leans against the bench, watching intently. His clothes are patched, his face smudged, yet his eyes shine. He whispers numbers under his breath, following each move as if memorizing the game. Perhaps one day he will sit at the table himself, risking his coin, or perhaps he will only watch, learning the rhythms of fortune he cannot yet afford. Your own fingers itch. The dice seem to call. You imagine their weight in your palm, the smoothness of bone, the thrill of release. What would you wager? A coin, a crust of bread, perhaps nothing you can spare, yet the pull is strong. This is how men lost themselves, how fortunes slipped away in a night. Records tell of apprentices spending their master's money, of clerics caught in taverns dicing away alms, of quarrels ending in blood over one unlucky throw. The players shout again. A man leaps up, his bench toppling. He accuses his neighbour, voice harsh, that the dice are loaded. The room stiffens. Hands hover near knives. The alewife approaches, her presence sudden and commanding. She slams her ladle against the table, the sound ringing sharp, silencing all. She snatches the dice, examines them briefly, then tosses them herself. They roll, scatter, land fair. She glares at the accuser, her silence heavier than any words. The man lowers his eyes, mutters an apology, rights his bench. The game resumes. Order restored, for now. You exhale, realizing your own breath had caught. The heat of the hearth feels far behind you now. Here the fire is in men's eyes. This is not only play, it is survival. Hope, despair, compressed into bone cubes and wooden boards. Someone offers you a mug again, pressing it into your hand. You sip, more to steady yourself than for thirst. The ale softens the edges, but the tension lingers. You wonder how many lives turned here, how many men stumbled home with empty purses, how many never left at all. The coroner's rolls mention deaths tied to gambling quarrels, blades flashing after accusations, bodies left in alleys. The dice could kill as surely as they entertained. The boy still watches, whispering, his lips moving faster now. He cheers when a clever move is made, gasps when fortune shifts. No one notices him but you. You wonder if he will remember tonight for years, if the dice will haunt him or guide him. Perhaps history never records him. Perhaps he is one of the countless forgotten who lived and lost in taverns like this. Yet for this moment his eyes are as alive as the torches. The game ends. Coins change hands, some pocketed quickly, others clutched too tightly. The winner grins, stretching back, while the losers mutter, promising fortune next time. The board is cleared, the dice pocketed, the table claimed again for mugs. The rhythm dissolves back into the tavern's endless hum. You sit back, letting the sound wash over you. The dice's clatter still rings in your ears, echoing like distant thunder. You feel the weight of risk, of chance, pressing on you even as you resist. Would you have rolled, if invited? Would you risk the hunger of tomorrow for the fleeting joy of tonight? The mug in your hand empties slowly. Your head grows light, your body warm, the dice fade from sight. But their call lingers, whispering still. You place the mug down, steadying yourself. The tavern continues. Laughter, song, quarrels, but you know the game has left its mark. You glance back once more at the table. The boy is gone. Only the scarred wood remains, coins scraped away, dice tucked into a pocket. Yet you feel his absence, as though a piece of the night slipped quietly into shadow. The fire cracks again. The stew bubbles still, but your eyes drift toward the alewife, toward the counter, toward the order she holds in this place. For a moment you think of her as the true master of the tavern, more than any gambler or drunk. Without her the mugs would empty, the pot would cool, the dice would scatter unplayed. You sit straighter, the sound of dice fading into memory, and prepare for whatever the tavern brings next. You shift your gaze back toward the counter, where authority lives, not in the dice, not in the laughter, but in the steady rhythm of mugs filled and coins exchanged. The alewife stands rooted like an oak, sleeves rolled, hair tucked beneath linen, eyes sharp. Around her the tavern ebbs and flows, but she remains constant, hands never still. She pours with one hand and tallies with the other. No paper ledger here, only a notched stick, each groove a debt, each line a promise. A man tries to wave her off, muttering about his coin being good for tomorrow. She fixes him with a stare so cold he fishes a penny from his pouch without another word. She scratches the stick, adds it to a bundle behind her, then moves on. Records tell us that alewives dominated the trade in many towns. Brewing was household work, and women extended it into commerce. Some thrived, gaining respect. Others drew suspicion, accused of watering their ale or cheating waits. In sermons they became symbols of sin, mocked as dishonest or bawdy. Yet here, watching her wield authority in this smoky room, you see not sin but survival. Every coin is her household's bread, every mug her reputation. Behind her, a younger girl works, perhaps a daughter, perhaps a servant. She hauls jugs from the cask, her arms trembling slightly with the effort. The smell of yeast clings to her, her apron damp from spills. She glances often at the alewife, seeking approval or fearing rebuke. At times their eyes meet, and the elder gives the faintest nod, a silent lesson in labour, in how a woman maintains her place in a world that rarely allows it. You lean closer to the counter. The wood is scarred, sticky with years of ale. Your elbow sticks as you rest it, pulling slightly when you shift. A fly buzzes, trapped between the counter and a mug. The alewife swats it away with the back of her hand, unbothered. Her eyes flick to you. For a moment you feel measured, weighed as customer, stranger, perhaps even threat. She paws without asking, slides the mug toward you, waits for the coin. Her silence speaks louder than any greeting. A man further down the counter protests. His ale is too thin, he shouts. The foam too scant. The alewife does not flinch. She lifts his mug, sniffs it, then pours it back into the jug, topping it with fresh ale. She slams it down again, harder this time, enough to splash over the rim. He wipes his hand, mutters, drinks. No apology is given, none expected. She turns away before he swallows his first mouthful. Not all hosts were so commanding. In larger inns, men often managed accounts, women brewing in the background. Some taverns were kept by guilds, their profits shared. But in countless parish records, the names of alewives appear, fined for weak ale, summoned to testify, praised for service. Their presence was undeniable, even if chroniclers tried to dismiss them. Your eyes wander to the doorway behind the counter, a narrow passage, half hidden by a curtain of rough cloth. You glimpse a shadow passing, perhaps children, perhaps a children, perhaps a swordridge for grain and barrels. This tavern is not only a business, but a home. Families slept in chambers beyond, their lives entangled with the clamour of strangers. Imagine children waking at night to shouts, to laughter, to the clink of mugs beyond the curtain. Their lullabies are the tavern's endless hum. The alewife's hand brushes yours as she clears an empty mug. Her fingers are rough, skin calloused from labour, nails chipped. You think of soft modern hands, cushioned by creams and comfort. Hers are instruments of survival. You wonder how many years they have poured, how many mugs lifted, how many coins counted. You wonder how many winters they have endured, scraping profit from thin harvests. Near the counter, a man leans heavily, his speech slurred. He reaches for the alewife's sleeve. She jerks her arm back, slams the ladle on the counter, and his hand retreats instantly. The crowd laughs at him, not her. She resumes her work as if nothing happened. But the warning lingers. In this space, she commands respect by force as much as by service. You sip your own mug, foam clinging to your lips. The ale is warmer now, sweeter on the tongue. You feel the weight of her gaze pass over the room, ensuring no one lingers too long without paying. No quarrel grows beyond her reach. She is tavern keeper, judge, and peacekeeper in one. A man nearby whispers to his companion, mocking her strength, calling her sharp-tongued. Yet his voice is low, his eyes cautious. He knows better than to cross her openly. Many records show women accused of scolding, of being too loud, of daring to argue. Yet in taverns that loudness kept order. Here, silence would mean chaos. The younger girl returns, lugging another jug. She nearly stumbles, ale sloshing over the rim. The alewife steadies her with one hand, takes the jug, pours swiftly, then hands it back. No words pass, but the lesson is clear. Steadiness, control, endurance. This is not a place for hesitation. Your attention shifts to a man entering from outside, his cloak wet with mist. He shakes it off, splattering droplets. The alewife glares until he moves aside, then gestures sharply toward a bench. He obeys, sitting, waiting for service. Authority without words. Somewhere in the corner, a friar mutters a prayer before lifting his mug. The alewife notices, raises an eyebrow but says nothing. Records suggest clerics often found themselves here despite prohibitions. Some claim to minister, others to indulge. Either way, the alewife serves without question. Coin is coin, soul or no soul. The night thickens. The alewife's shoulders slump briefly, only for her to straighten again. She wipes her brow with her sleeve, then pours once more. Her work has no end until the last mug empties, the last coin paid. Behind her eyes, perhaps, is exhaustion. Behind her stance, unyielding strength. You finish your mug, Set it down. She nods once. Acknowledgement, nothing more. You feel strangely honored, as if her recognition confers belonging. In this crowded hall amid dice and stew and quarrels, her approval feels like the only seal that matters. You step back, giving space for the next patron. The alewife turns, ladle lifted, already moving, already serving. The rhythm continues. She is the tavern's heartbeat, as constant as the fire, as relentless as the dice. The dice rattle again somewhere behind you. The fire hisses, the stew bubbles, mugs clink, but your eyes linger on her a moment longer, memorizing the strength in her stance, the authority in her silence. You drift away from the counter, mug in hand, toward the long benches stretching across the center of the room. They are rough-hewn planks, sagging in the middle, supported by trestles that wobble each time someone leans too heavily. The benches creak, the tables groan, yet they hold beneath the weight of bodies pressed close together. Here the tavern's true life breathes. You pause before sliding into a gap. A man scoots over with a grunt, his hip brushing yours as you sit. The wood is warm beneath you, not from fire but from bodies. Elbows knock, shoulders touch. Privacy does not exist here. The bench demands company, intimacy, friction. To your left sits a merchant. His cloak is of better wool, lined with fur at the collar. A purse bulges at his side, tied securely. He speaks in French to a companion across the table. Their voice is quick and confident. You catch fragments about trade, about cloth prices, about ships leaving for Calais. Their mugs are cleaner than most, pewter rather than wood, catching torchlight in pale gleams. They drink with measured sips, but their eyes never rest, always scanning the room, always watching. To your right, a farmhand leans heavily, his breath thick with ale, his hands are calloused, nails black with soil. He chews on a strip of meat, tearing it with blunt teeth, then wipes his mouth with the back of his hand. He laughs loudly at nothing in particular, elbowing you as if you are part of his joke. His boots drip mud onto the rushes. He does not notice or does not care. Across from you sits a pair of mercenaries. Their cloaks are ragged, patched with scraps of leather, but swords hang at their belts, scabbards nicked and worn. One scars his bread with a knife, before dipping it into stew, his eyes never leaving the room. The other swigs ale, foam clinging to his beard. They speak in low tones, their words heavy with foreign accents. Perhaps they have marched in France, or fought in Flanders, or guarded caravans across Germany. They do not laugh, do not jest. Their silence is louder than the farmhand's cheer. Beside them, a pilgrim bows his head over a bowl. A badge glints on his cloak. Perhaps Canterbury, perhaps Santiago, a token of long miles walked. His boots are cracked, his hands raw. He murmurs a prayer before each spoonful, lips moving soundlessly. No one mocks him, though a mercenary smirks faintly. Pilgrims are common here, too common to draw scorn. They carry stories from far roads, sometimes holy, sometimes worldly, always welcome. At the far end of the bench, a group of students argue, their Latin words half correct, half drunk. They are young, their hair long, their eyes bright with foolish confidence. They quote lines from Aristotle, stumble over grammar, then break into laughter. Their voices rise, carrying over the table, until the alewife glares from across the room. They quiet, briefly, then resume in whispers. University rolls mention students fined for tavern brawls, for gambling, for skipping lectures in favour of ale. Looking at these boys, you see how such records came to be. The bench itself tells a story. Its scars are grooves of knives, stains of ale, burns from careless tortures. You trace a notch with your finger, smooth from years of touch. How many hands rested here? How many elbows leaned? How many nights passed in this same press of bodies? The wood remembers more than any chronicle. A serving boy appears, carrying a tray. His arms tremble beneath the weight of mugs, yet he navigates the crowd with practiced agility. He sets mugs down, collects coins, dodges a grab at his sleeve. His eyes dart constantly, avoiding trouble, seeking openings. He cannot be more than 14. Already he carries the tavern's rhythm in his steps. The merchant raises his mug. He nods to the mercenary, a gesture bridging trade and war. The mercenary hesitates, then clinks his cup in return. For a moment their worlds touch, cloth and steel, profit and blood, joined by ale. You watch as they drink, as the sound of wood against metal folds into the tavern's song. The farmhand nudges you again, pointing at the students. He laughs at their clumsy Latin, mocks their airs, then drains his mug in one gulp. He slams it down so hard the table rattles. The students glare but say nothing. Perhaps they know better than to argue with a man whose fists are thicker than their books. The pilgrim finishes his bowl. He wipes his mouth, clasps his hands, murmurs again. His prayer is nearly drowned by the laughter beside him, yet his focus never wavers. You envy his calm amid chaos. Perhaps faith is the only anchor in such noise. The merchant signals for another jug. He counts coins swiftly, his fingers deft, his eyes wary. Trade never ends, not even here. You imagine him tomorrow, haggling in a market, measuring cloth, marking debts. Tonight, though, he sits among peasants and mercenaries, bound by the same bench, the same ale. This is the tavern's secret. It erases distance. Nobles rarely came, but merchants, students, pilgrims, farmhands, mercenaries, all sit elbow to elbow, all share stew and ale. Here, differences blur, if only for an evening. Court records prove that fights often reminded men of their stations, but for now the bench holds them together. A quarrel rises at the far end. A student mocks the farmhand's accent, calling it rustic. The farmhand rises, fists clenched. The bench groans as bodies shift, ready to scatter. But before blows fall, the alewife's ladle cracks against the table. Silence spreads. Her glare pins both men. They lower their heads, mutter apologies, sit again. The tension dissolves. The bench breathes once more. You sip slowly, your mug nearly empty. The taste lingers, faintly sour now. The merchant finishes his drink, wipes his lips neatly. The farmhand belches, unashamed. The pilgrim closes his eyes, perhaps praying for all of them. The mercenaries glance at the door, ever watchful. The students whisper, plotting their next jest. All of them bound to the same wood, the same night, the same smoky air. Your back aches from the hard bench. You shift, pressing your palms against the table. The wood feels sticky, alive with spills. You think of cushioned chairs, of polished tables, of quiet restaurants. The contrast bites. Yet here, discomfort is the price of company, and company is survival. A bell tolls outside, muffled. Another hour slips by. The bench shifts again, new faces arriving, old ones leaving. The tavern breathes in cycles like a tide. You remain pressed among strangers, listening to their voices weave together into a single hum. You close your eyes briefly. The smells cling, ale, sweat, smoke, stew. The sounds crowd, laughter, curses, murmurs, prayers. The bench holds you steady, and for a moment you feel the strange comfort of belonging, even among strangers. The air shifts as you notice a smaller table near the wall, different from the crowded benches. Here sit men of finer dress, their cloaks cleaner, their voices lower. Their mugs are not wood but glassy cups or pewter vessels, gleaming faintly in the wavering light. The liquid inside is not cloudy brown ale, but something red, translucent, richer in colour. You move closer, drawn by the difference. The smell reaches you first, sweet and sharp at once. Not the sour tang of ale, not the yeasty warmth, but a fragrance foreign to this smoky hall. Grapes crushed under southern suns, fermented in barrels that travelled by ship across the channel. Wine was not common drink for all. It was a marker of status, of wealth, of access to trade routes and foreign merchants. One man lifts his cup, tilting it carefully. He swirls the liquid, studies its legs clinging to the pewter. His lips purse, then he sips with deliberate restraint. His companion nods approvingly, as if sharing in a ritual known only to the chosen. They speak of vintages: Gascony, Bordeaux, Burgundy. To them, the names are not exotic but familiar, tokens of power. Records tell us that London taverns often specialized in wine, storing it in sealed casks, inspected by officials called wine criers to ensure quality. Adulteration was common, and punishment severe. A tavern caught selling sour wine risked fines or worse. The stakes were high because the customers were influential. You wonder at the taste. Wine in your own world is bottled, corked, guaranteed. Here, it could be sweetened with honey, spiced with cloves or cinnamon, watered to stretch profits. Letters complain of thin wines, of merchants cheating buyers, yet still, it held prestige. Ale was for all. Wine was for the chosen. A servant approaches the table with a jug sealed in wax. He cuts the wax carefully, pours slowly, ensuring no sediment slips into the cup. The men watch intently, their eyes sharp for any fault. One frowns, lifts his cup, tastes, then nods. Only then does the conversation resume. Ritual complete, trust restored. You slide onto a bench nearby, pretending not to listen, but their words float easily in the smoky air. They speak of trade treaties, of royal taxes, of shipments seized at sea. They speak of noble feasts where wine flowed like rivers, where goblets shone in candlelight. Their voices are calm, measured, unlike the boisterous laughter at the long benches. This is power spoken in whispers, not shouts. Yet even here, tension flickers. One man leans too close, his breath heavy with drink. His companion stiffens, offended by the breach of decorum. A silence falls, broken only by the clink of his cup against the table. Then the moment passes, smoothed by another pour. Wine demands composure, even in anger. You think of the alewife bustling at the counter. She serves ale freely, mugs sliding across wood, but wine she handles differently. She brings out smaller vessels, pours with care, demands higher coins. She knows its value, knows its customers. The ale keeps the tavern alive, but the wine gives it standing. A memory from record surfaces in 1309, London listed hundreds of taverns, many selling wine. Some were said to be licensed exclusively for it. Foreign merchants thrived there, catering to wealthy Englishmen hungry for continental tastes. A penny could buy several mugs of ale, but wine might cost 10 times more. The difference was not in nourishment, but in prestige. You sip from your own ale, still warm, still sour. You imagine the taste of wine, sharper, lighter, sweeter perhaps. Would it lift you from the smoky air, or would it only remind you of distance between you and them? You think of your own time, where wine fills supermarket shelves, affordable to many. Here it separates classes, marks boundaries as clearly as the clothes on their backs. A woman passes with a tray of spiced wine, its scent thick with cinnamon and ginger. The warmth of the spices fills the air, masking for a moment the tavern's smoke. Such drinks were favoured at feasts, costly, luxurious. The men take their cups reverently, sip slowly, savouring not just flavour but the weight of wealth it represents. You inhale, the scent lingering like memory, then fading as quickly as it came. At another table, a poorer man eyes the wine with longing. His mug is empty, his purse likely thin. He whispers to his companion, who shakes his head. Wine is not for him. He lowers his eyes, ashamed perhaps, or resigned. He will drink ale again, and perhaps dream of red liquid he cannot taste. The wine drinkers laugh softly. Their jokes are subtle, layered, meant for ears that understand trade and law. The rest of the tavern ignores them, too busy with their dice, their stew, their ale. Two worlds share the same smoky air but rarely touch. The bench unites peasants and merchants, but wine separates. Still, even wine cannot shield them from the tavern's nature. A mercenary stumbles past, his elbow jostling a cup. Red liquid splashes onto the table. The wine drinker freezes, his face flushed with anger. He opens his mouth ready to curse, but the alewife's eyes fall on him. He pauses, swallows his words, wipes the spill with his sleeve. Even the chosen yield to her rule. You sit back, watching the contrast unfold. Ale mugs clink in chaos, laughter rising, spilling like foam. Wine cups touch gently, softly, almost reverently. Two drinks, two worlds side by side, bound by the same fire, the same smoke, the same night. Your ale is gone. You set the mug down, fingers tracing the sticky ring it leaves. You feel the divide, the ale that warms your belly, the wine that you will not taste tonight. Yet the tavern holds both, and somehow both belong. You lean against the wall, letting the noise soften around you. The wine drinkers murmur, the ale drinkers shout, the fire crackles, the stew bubbles. The tavern breathes all of them in, holds them together, if only for a night. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It directly supports the channel and keeps these long journeys alive. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you listening from and what time is it there right now? The stew fills bellies, the ale warms throats, but not every night in a medieval tavern tasted the same. The rhythm of food and drink was bound not only to harvests and trade, but to the calendar of the church. Feast days and fast days governed the table as firmly as the alewife ruled her counter. And tonight, as you linger near the fire, you hear the shift in conversation, murmurs about what tomorrow will bring, meat or none, indulgence or restraint. A friar seated near the door gestures with his mug as he speaks. His words slurred yet certain. He warns that Lent approaches, that the tavern will soon smell more of fish than of beef or mutton. His companions groan, one muttering that fish spoils too quickly, another that dried cod is hard as wood. The friar nods solemnly, yet takes another swallow of ale, his piety softened by necessity. You think of how the church calendar shaped every life. Nearly half the year, by some reckonings, was fast. No meat, no dairy, sometimes no eggs. Fish was permitted, but costly inland. Herring salted in barrels, cod dried hard for travel, eels pulled from rivers, tavern kitchens adapted. Their perpetual stews thickened with peas, beans, cabbage and onions, instead of flesh. Records show innkeepers fined for serving meat on forbidden days, yet also of officials bribed to look the other way. In the smoky light, you imagine how many compromises filled these bowls. The memory of your own stew lingers on your tongue, its richness, its meat. You picture the same pot tomorrow, emptied of bones, filled instead with salted herring, its brine scent strong enough to cut through the smoke. Would the flavour comfort you still, or only remind you of absence? Hunger decides quickly in this world. Across the table, a merchant recalls feast days with pride. He tells of Michaelmas, when goose was served golden and crisp, its fat dripping onto bread. He boasts of Christmas feasts, where wine poured freely, where spiced pies filled with raisins and figs were shared. His listeners lean in, their eyes bright with memory. Feast days meant not only plenty, but joy, a break from the grind of work and the strictness of fasts. For a tavern they were nights of profit, mugs never empty, tables never bare. But with feasts came dangers too. Records mention brawls breaking out on holy days, when drink loosened tongues and tempers. One tale tells of a man killed on Easter Monday after ale turned laughter to insult, insult to blade. Even celebration could carry death beneath its cheer. A woman at the far bench speaks of saints' days when processions filled the streets, when taverns overflowed with pilgrims and revellers. She recalls musicians playing late into the night, drums and fiddles, voices raised in song. Her memory is tinged with longing, perhaps because tonight is not such a day. Tonight the music is faint, the songs half-hearted, the mugs heavy but routine. You glance at the fire again. A fishtail dangles above it now, drying in the smoke, ready for tomorrow. The smell already seeps into the air, mingling with stew and ale. You wrinkle your nose, yet some lean closer, hungry for variety. For them, even fish is relief from monotony. You think of your own time, where diets are chosen, where restriction is luxury, where abstinence is personal rather than imposed. Here, choice is an illusion. The calendar dictates, the tavern obeys. Meat one day, none the next. Feast and fast, indulgence and restraint, alternating like breath. A student beside you jokes that fast days make men thin, then laughs too loudly. His companions hush him, fearful of the friar's glare. Even in jest, the rules hold weight. The alewife moves among them. Ladle in hand, she does not argue doctrine. She serves what coin and law allow. Yet you wonder how many times she has stirred her pot with frustration, how many times she has seen customers turn away on fasting nights, unwilling to pay for fish stew. Survival demands obedience, but profit demands bending. Perhaps she does both, shifting her recipes, masking meat with herbs, or stretching fish with beans. No record tells you exactly. You only imagine, watching her stir. The bell outside tolls again. A man mutters that tomorrow is a saint's vigil. Already he frets about food, about whether the tavern will close or serve only bread and ale. His companion reassures him. Taverns rarely close fully, even on holy nights. Men must eat after all. The church forbids sin, but hunger never waits. Your belly feels heavy now, both from stew and ale, yet you imagine it empty. Imagine the long nights of Lent when meat vanished, when hunger bit sharper, when the tavern smelled only of salt and fish. Would the benches still be so crowded? Would the dice still rattle as cheerfully? Perhaps yes, for ale never vanished, and company mattered more than flavour. The friar finishes his mug, wipes his beard and rises. He stumbles slightly, steadies himself on the doorframe, and mutters a blessing as he leaves. His words dissolve into the smoke, half heard, half believed. The tavern resumes its rhythm, but his presence lingers, a reminder that faith governs even here, even in this smoky hall where mugs clink louder than prayers. You sip the last of your drink, warm and sour. Your eyes drift to the window, covered in cloth. Beyond it lies darkness, fields, rivers, farms. You think of peasants catching fish by torchlight, of merchants hauling barrels of herring, of women in kitchens stretching beans into soup, all bound to the same calendar, all waiting for feast or fast to dictate their meals. Inside, the tavern breathes steadily. The stew bubbles, the dice rattle, the mugs slam. Tomorrow it may smell of fish, next week of goose. Tonight it is meat and ale. Tonight it is enough. You rest your hand on the table, sticky with spilled drink. The rhythm of feast and fast presses around you, ancient and relentless. You exhale slowly, letting the smoke fill your lungs once more. The tavern holds you in its cycle, as it has held countless before you, as it will hold countless after. The tavern shifts again, its pulse no longer measured in dice or mugs, but in sound. At first it is faint, a string plucked, uneven, searching for a tune. Then another joins, a drum beaten softly, almost hesitant as though testing the mood. The murmur of voices quiets just enough to let the melody thread its way through the smoke. You turn toward the far corner, where a minstrel stands. His cloak is worn, his boots scuffed, but his eyes glimmer with the confidence of one who knows the room is his. The moment he plays, he lifts his lute, strums again. The sound is raw, unpolished, but it cuts through the noise. Someone claps in rhythm. Another stamps a foot. Soon the tavern breathes in time with him. The alewife herself pauses mid-pour, her head tilting slightly to catch the tune. It is an old ballad, one you do not know, yet its refrain is simple, meant to be carried by many voices at once. The words tell of a knight lost in battle, of a lady waiting at her window, of sorrow softened by drink. The details blur, but the rhythm carries you. Around you voices join in, some tuneful, some hoarse, some slurred with ale. The song swells, a chorus born of strangers, weaving together grief and joy. You feel your chest vibrate with the sound, as if the tavern itself sings. Music was always part of tavern life. Records speak of minstrels wandering from hall to hall, earning coin or meals with their songs. Sometimes they sang of saints, sometimes of sin, sometimes they mocked lords, sometimes praised them. Ballads spread news, carried tales, preserved memories long before ink could reach common folk. You realize now that to hear a song here is not mere diversion. It is connection, a web spun across miles and years. The minstrel's fingers move faster. The drum beats louder. A boy claps out of time, earning laughter but also cheers. A woman rises, her skirt swinging, and begins to dance. Not graceful, not rehearsed, but with raw energy. Her feet slap against the rushes. Her arms lift, her body sways. Soon another joins, then another. A ring forms, clapping, stomping, calling. The tavern transforms into a hall of rhythm. Each body a note, each step a beat. You watch, caught between awe and unease. The floor trembles slightly beneath the stomping, mugs slosh, stew rattles in bowls. Yet no one minds. Laughter bursts, cheers rise, voices shout refrains. The song crests, wild, alive. You feel your own foot tapping, unbidden. Even your hands itch to clap, to join. For a moment you do. The sound leaves your palms lost instantly in the chorus, yet part of it still. The ballad shifts, the story turning bawdier now, the knight forgotten, replaced by a miller too fond of ale, by a maiden too clever for him. Laughter rings as verses grow lewd, but the friar's absence spares the singers from reproach. Even the merchant at the bench smiles faintly, tapping his fingers against pewter. Music softens boundaries that even ale could not. Yet not all approve. A mercenary scowls, mutters that the lute is out of tune. A student jeers, shouting for another song. The minstrel ignores them, his eyes closed, his fingers steady. This is his craft, his power. To falter would be to yield the room. He plays louder, faster, drowning them out. The drum matches him. The voices follow. Resistance fades, swallowed by sound. You think of your own world, where music is recorded, polished, replayed endlessly. Here, it is fleeting, born only for this night, this room, this company. When the lute falls silent, the song will vanish, remembered only in fragments. The impermanence strikes you, and makes the moment sharper, more precious. The dance grows wilder. A man trips, stumbles into the ring, nearly toppling. He steadies himself, bows with exaggerated flourish, and laughter erupts. Another takes his place, spinning clumsily, his arms flailing. Cheers drown out the tune itself. Yet the minstrel keeps playing, feeding the frenzy. The alewife shakes her head, smiling, despite herself. For once, order bends and joy takes command. Then the ballad ends. The lute strums one final chord, the drum strikes, the voices fade, silence rushes in, thick and sudden. For a heartbeat, only the fire crackles. Then applause explodes, mugs pounding tables, boots stamping floors, hands clapping raw. The minstrel bows, sweat glistening, his grin weary but wide. Coins clink at his feet, tossed by grateful patrons. He gathers them quickly, knowing generosity fades as swiftly as song. Another tune begins. Softer this time, a lament, slow and mournful. The dancers sink back to benches, the laughter quiets. Voices hum along, low and rough. The ballad tells of famine, of fields gone barren, of families lost. The room grows still, the weight of memory pressing. Some wipe eyes, others stare into mugs. Music turns the tavern inward, reminding all that joy and sorrow live side by side. You feel your throat tighten, though you do not know the words. The melody alone carries grief enough. It echoes through smoke and shadow, through scarred beams and weary faces. You wonder how many songs like this have filled taverns across centuries, carrying pain too heavy for speech. When the lament fades, the tavern exhales. The noise returns slowly. A laugh here, a clink there, voices rising cautiously. The minstrel lowers his lute, wipes it with a cloth, then sits with a bowl of stew, his payment as vital as coins. The drum rests silent beside him, waiting for another night. You sit back, ears ringing with echoes. The tavern feels different now, lighter and heavier at once. Music has shifted its air, pulled its people together, then apart again. You sense how vital it is, how it binds, how it remembers. Without it, the tavern would be only food and ale. With it, it is life itself. Your fingers still tap faintly. Though no tune plays, you stare into the fire, watching sparks rise like fleeting notes. You think of music in your own world, stored forever, yet often ignored. Here it lives only once, demanding full attention, carving memory deep. You carry the ballad already, though you know it will blur by dawn. The tavern resumes its endless hum. Dice rattle again, mugs slam, stew bubbles, but beneath it all you hear the faint echo of the ballad, still lingering, still alive in your chest. The music fades and the tavern's rhythm returns to its restless hum. Yet beneath the laughter and clinking mugs you sense a shift. The air feels tighter, as if the smoke itself stiffens, holding its breath. Near the door voices rise. At first a mutter, then a growl, then the sharp crack of a fist against wood. You turn. Two men stand nose to nose, their shadows thrown long by torchlight. One is broad, his shoulders heavy from farm labour, his fists clenched as if ready for harvest. The other is leaner, his cloak frayed but his stance sharp, dangerous. Their voices blur into shouts, curses spilling fast, words about coin, about a debt unpaid, about an insult at dice. The details vanish in noise, but the fury is clear. Around them, benches scrape as bodies shift. Some lean forward eagerly, hungry for spectacle. Others draw back, shielding mugs and bowls. A woman pulls her child closer, hiding his face against her sleeve. The alewife sets down her ladle, her eyes narrowing. You feel the tavern itself tense, waiting for the blow. It comes sudden, swift. The broad man swings, fist cracking against jaw. The lean one staggers, then lunges, driving his shoulder into the other's chest. They crash against the door, its iron hinges groaning. The tavern erupts. Shouts, cheers, gasps. Mugs spill, coins scatter, benches topple. The fire spits as someone stumbles too close, sparks leaping into the rushes. Fights in taverns were common. Coroners' rolls record them grimly. Men dead from knives drawn too quickly, from skulls cracked against tables, from blades slipped between ribs. Even a blow from a fist could end a life if poorly met. And yet, as dangerous as they were, such quarrels were almost expected. A tavern without a fight was like a fire without smoke. The lean man recovers, pulling a knife from his belt. Its blade glints, small but sharp. The crowd roars louder, some urging him on, others shouting for him to stop. The alewife moves quickly, her ladle raised high. She slams it against the counter, the sound ringing like a bell. For a heartbeat, the room stills, but not enough. The broad man lunges, grappling, his hand striking the knife aside. They tumble, bodies twisting, limbs locked, boots skid on rushes, sending dirt and ale flying. They crash into a bench, splintering wood. A student cries out as his mug tips, ale soaking his cloak. He shouts, angered, and for a moment it seems the fight will spill wider, drawing others in. You press back against the wall, your heart pounding. The noise surrounds you, the chants, the curses, the sound of fists meeting flesh. The air grows hotter, thicker, vibrating with chaos. You remember modern bars, brawls broken by guards or police. Here, no such order waits. Only the alewife, only the crowd, only survival. The mercenaries rise, their hands on sword hilts. They exchange a glance, then step forward, not to stop the fight, not yet, but to ensure no one draws steel too recklessly. Their presence alone is warning enough. Still, the lean man's knife flashes again, grazing the broad man's arm. Blood beads, dark against torchlight. The crowd gasps, some recoiling, others cheering louder. The alewife storms forward now, her ladle raised like a weapon. She wedges herself between the men, her voice sharp, cutting through noise. She slams her ladle against the lean man's arm, forcing him to drop the knife. She thrusts her shoulder against the broad man, shoving him back with surprising strength. The crowd boos, groans, but she does not falter. Her glare alone silences most. 2 serving boys rush to her side, scooping up the knife, kicking it beneath the counter. The mercenaries step closer, crossing their arms, daring anyone to resist. Slowly, grudgingly, the men retreat. The broad man spits blood onto the floor, his eyes swelling. The lean one clutches his arm, cursing under his breath. Neither looks victorious, only exhausted. The alewife points to the door. Her meaning is clear. Out. Both men hesitate, pride battling fear. Then the mercenaries step forward, and choice vanishes. The men stumble out into the night, their quarrel unfinished but removed from the tavern's heart. The door slams shut behind them, the hinges groaning once more. The tavern exhales, noise rushing back like tide. Laughter erupts, half relief, half mockery. Mugs are raised again, coins gathered, benches righted. The fight becomes story even as the bruises still swell. Already voices retell it, each exaggerating, each reshaping. By morning it will be legend, and by next week forgotten, replaced by another. You breathe deeply, your chest tight. The smell of sweat and blood clings sharper now, mingling with smoke. You glance at the alewife, her shoulders heaving. Her face set, she wipes her brow, then returns to her ladle, as if nothing had happened. Her authority stands, her tavern endures. You imagine the dangers outside. In narrow alleys, the fight may continue. A knife may find its mark. A body may fall. Records speak of such endings. Coroners listing names of men slain in quarrels, of widows pleading for justice, of fines paid in blood. Yet here, inside, the tavern resumes. The dice rattle again, the stew bubbles, the song resumes in a corner. Life moves on, relentless. A woman whispers to a child, soothing him with gentle strokes across his hair. His eyes are wide, his small body trembling. She hushes him, offers him a crust of bread. His chewing calms him, though his gaze lingers on the door. Perhaps he will remember this night, his first fight witnessed, his first lesson in tavern life. You touch the table, still sticky with spilled ale. The wood trembles faintly beneath your palm, as if holding the echo of the fight. You wonder if you would have intervened, if you could, or would you, like most, have watched, waiting for the outcome. A question without answer, fading as laughter rises once more. The night deepens. Torches gutter, shadows crawl higher. The tavern swallows the fight into its rhythm, as it has swallowed countless before. You sip what remains in your mug, the ale now flat, but welcome still. The warmth returns to your chest, steadying your breath. The quarrel lingers in memory, but the tavern moves forward. You lean back, eyes closing briefly. The door stands firm, scarred now by fists and shoulders. Beyond it, the night waits, cold and silent. Inside, the tavern hums, restless, alive, always one heartbeat away from joy or violence. The fight has ended, the door still trembling from the slam, but your mind lingers on something deeper than bruises and curses. Order, rules, punishments, Behind every mug and every bite of stew lies the weight of laws, unseen but inescapable. Even here, in this smoky hall, the crown and the church extend their reach. A man at the counter grumbles loudly, waving his half-empty mug. Too thin, he says, his voice thick with contempt. His neighbours nod knowingly. It is not just insult, it is accusation. In your time, you would call it fraud. In his, it is a crime against the assize of bread and ale. You recall what records tell since the 13th century. England's rulers fixed the price and strength of ale, linking it to the cost of grain. If a taverner watered it down, if a brewer stretched the malt too far, punishment followed. Inspectors, ale conners, prowled the streets, appointed by the parish, sworn to taste and test. Their job was humble yet feared. One sip could mean a fine. One report could ruin a house. You picture them entering now, cloaked against the night. They press through the crowd, accepted yet disliked, like unwelcome guests. One dips a ladle into the alewife's jug, sips, smacks his lips with studied gravity. Another inspects the measures, ensuring no false bottoms in mugs, no smaller cups passed off as full. Their presence stills the room, laughter muting, dice pausing, every eye watches, waiting for verdict. If the ale was found weak, the punishment could be swift and public. Coins paid to the town, barrels emptied into the gutter. At times harsher still, the alewife tied to a cart dragged through the streets, her neighbours jeering, her reputation ruined. Records mention the cucking stool, a wooden chair hung on a beam, dunked into water. The crowd laughed as the guilty sputtered, her dignity drowned as surely as her body. You imagine the cold bite of river water, the roar of voices above, the weight of shame heavier than any stone. Closer to you, a friar mutters that such punishments serve God's will, that dishonesty poisons the soul as well as the stomach. Yet his own mug is nearly empty, and he beckons for another fill. His words ring hollow, a sermon blurred by ale. Still, his presence reminds you how deeply the church judged taverns. Preachers railed against dice, against women selling drink, against men wasting wages. They called taverns nests of sin, yet still they filled, night after night. At a nearby bench, a merchant argues about bread. He slams a fist on the table, crumbs scattering. Last Lent he growls. A farthing bought nothing but a crust fit for mice. His companions nod. The assize fixed weight to grain price, so when harvests failed, loaves shrank. Bakers were punished if they cheated further, but hunger blurred lines between fairness and theft. You imagine those shrunken loaves, hard and dry, sold in desperation. Justice was measured in ounces, survival in crumbs. A serving boy stumbles past, a jug tipping from his arms. Ale splashes across the rushes, soaking straw. The merchant snarls, demanding repayment. But the alewife strides forward, her voice sharp. Once ale leaves the jug, she declares, the risk is the drinker's. Her authority brooks no debate. The merchant swallows his anger, wiping his cloak. Even here, unwritten law rules as firmly as any statute. Laughter bursts from another table as a man retells an old tale of ale conners and their breeches. You've heard of it before. Fresh ale spilled on a wooden bench, inspectors sitting upon it in leather trousers. If their breeches stuck, the ale was judged strong enough. If not, fines followed. The absurd image sparks cheers, mugs slamming in rhythm. You cannot help but smile at the thought of solemn men reduced to sticky seats, dignity sacrificed in service of law. Yet, beneath the laughter lies fear. Punishment was more than spectacle. It was survival's edge. A woman fined too heavily might lose her trade. Her children hungry. A man beaten for gambling might limp home too broken to work. Justice was uneven, tilted by coin and standing. Records whisper of bribes, of inspectors softened by gifts, of taverners spared because they knew the right names. The law was real, but its bite was never equal. The door creaks, and for a moment you imagine inspectors entering now. You feel the tavern tense, voices lowering, mugs set aside. Would they find fault here? The ale is sour but hearty, the mugs mismatched but fair, the stew thick, perhaps too thick with meat on a fasting night. Would they fine the alewife, drag her outside, humiliate her, or would they drink, accept her quiet offering of coin or stew, and declare all well? Both stories ring true, both written in history's ink. The fire pops, sending sparks into the air. The alewife stirs her pot, unbothered. Her hands are steady, her eyes sharp. She has lived too long with inspectors and sermons to flinch now. Perhaps she has been fined before, perhaps dunked, perhaps spared. You cannot tell. All you see is endurance, the strength of someone who bends yet does not break. A pilgrim at the far bench crosses himself, muttering that law is God's mercy, that punishment saves souls. A student beside him snorts, whispering that law is only coin, nothing more. Their voices clash, faith against cynicism, both swallowed by the tavern's hum. You sip your mug, nearly empty now. The taste lingers, sour, alive, weighted with memory. You feel the law pressing even here, invisible yet heavy, as real as the smoke in your lungs. The bell outside tolls again, muffled, distant. Inside, the tavern exhales, laughter resumes, dice rattle, stew bubbles. Yet beneath it all, the law waits, watching, ready to punish, ready to profit. You breathe slowly, steadying yourself. The tavern endures, the alewife endures, the law endures, and you, for now, endure with them. The tavern breathes again, but new arrivals shift its rhythm. The door creaks open, letting in a draught of damp night air. Cloaks drip with mist as figures shuffle inside, stamping their boots, shaking out their sleeves. Their faces are weary, their bodies slouched with fatigue. Travellers, two pilgrims, make their way toward the benches, badges glinting faintly on their cloaks. One bears the scallop shell of Santiago, the other the cross of Canterbury. Their boots are cracked, their hands blistered from staff and string. Dust and mud cling to them, though rain has streaked it into darker stains. They carry little more than satchels and faith. The tavern welcomes them not with silence, but with space made at a bench, shoulders shifting to grant them place. Pilgrims were common in these centuries. Records tell of men and women walking miles to holy shrines, carrying tokens of saints, begging bread along the way. Taverns fed them, housed them when coin allowed, tolerated them when it did not. They were both honoured and pitied, honoured for devotion, pitied for poverty. Tonight, you see both in the way eyes glance at them, some with respect, others with scorn. One pilgrim lowers himself onto the bench with a sigh, his bones cracking audibly. He clasps his hands, murmurs a prayer, then accepts a bowl of stew. He dips his bread carefully, savouring each bite as though it were blessed. His companion sits straighter, his gaze roving the room, alert despite exhaustion. Perhaps he fears thieves. Travellers were often robbed as much as welcomed. You sense his unease, his shoulders tense each time. Laughter spikes too sharply. Beside them sit students, young men barely more than boys, their hair long, their voices loud. Their Latin stumbles drunkenly across the table, half-learned phrases from Aristotle or Virgil twisted into jokes. They elbow one another, laugh at their own wit, mock accents and misquotes. Their mugs spill as often as they are raised. One shouts for more ale, waving his coin like a banner. The alewife narrows her eyes, wary of their bravado, but serves nonetheless. Universities in Oxford, Paris, Bologna. Records are filled with complaints of unruly scholars haunting taverns. They drank, they gambled, they brawled, often shielded by clerical status that spared them from harsher law. Tonight you see it firsthand. A student rises unsteadily, declaiming in mock sermon, his voice booming until it cracks. His companions roar with laughter, slamming the table in approval. A pilgrim flinches at the noise, drawing his cloak tighter. The contrast sharpens. Pilgrims weary from holy miles, students drunk on freedom and ale, both outsiders, both tolerated, both woven into the tavern's fabric. You watch as their worlds brush, a student mocking the scallop badge, a pilgrim frowning, silent. The moment could sour, but a mercenary intervenes with a bark of laughter, diffusing the tension. The student bows theatrically to the pilgrim, his grin more mocking than sincere, but the danger passes. Your eyes wander to their belongings. The pilgrim's satchels sag with bread crusts, perhaps relics or charms tucked within. The student's pouches bulge with dice, wax tablets, and loose coins. One carries a book, bound in leather, though its pages are already stained with ale. You think of books in your own world, common and cheap. Here, one volume marks privilege, carried even into smoke and chaos, its words recited poorly but proudly. The pilgrims whisper among themselves, their voices soft, speaking of shrines, of relics, of miracles rumoured along the road. They share tales of saints' bones displayed in glass, of holy wells, of candles burning without end. The students mock them under their breath, scoffing at superstition. Yet one listens more closely, his brow furrowed, perhaps less certain in his scorn. Faith and doubt sit side by side on this bench, neither yielding. A serving boy brings another jug. The student sees it greedily, pouring mugs to the brim. The pilgrims accept none. Their coin too thin, their prayers too thick. Instead, they sip water from a wooden cup, its taste metallic, faintly sour. You recall that water was rarely trusted, yet pilgrims often had no choice. The contrast with the students' overflowing mugs is sharp, painful to watch. The tavern itself seems to judge them differently. Dice clatter near the students. Laughter echoing, silence gathers near the pilgrims. A small pocket of calm amid chaos. Some glance at them with curiosity, some with pity, some with suspicion. Pilgrims were said to bring blessings, but also lice, disease, and begging. Students were said to bring wit and learning, but also arrogance and trouble. Both truths feel alive tonight. One student leans too far, his elbow knocking the pilgrim's bowl. Stew splashes across the man's cloak. The pilgrim stiffens, his lips pressed tight, his hand gripping his staff. The student laughs, apologizes half-heartedly, then offers a coin for another bowl. The alewife intervenes, her ladle tapping sharply against the table. The student shrinks back, chastened. She serves the pilgrim fresh stew without charge, her eyes daring any objection. Order restored, if only briefly. You sense the deeper truth. Taverns were crossroads. Roads brought merchants, mercenaries, pilgrims, students. Inside they met, collided, shared space uneasily. Sometimes kindness bridged them, sometimes conflict divided them. Tonight, you witness both. The pilgrims finish their bowls slowly, reverently. They murmur a prayer of thanks, their voices nearly lost beneath laughter. One fingers his badge, tracing its lines as though drawing strength. The students meanwhile grow louder, their jokes cruder, their Latin devolving into nonsense. One collapses onto the table, asleep before his mug empties. His friends drape a cloak over him, laughing still. The contrast is sharp, but somehow the bench holds both worlds. You sip from your own mug, nearly drained. The ale tastes flatter now, but its warmth lingers. You glance at the pilgrims, at the students, at the space between them. You think of your own journeys, trains, planes, cars, and how rarely strangers are pressed so close, forced to share air and food. Here the tavern binds all, no matter how unwilling. A bell tolls outside, faint, marking another hour gone. The pilgrims rise, bow slightly, and slip toward the corner where straw mats promise rest. The students slump further, their laughter fading into snores. The tavern shifts again, quieter, heavier, yet still alive. You lean back, your body weary, your mind full. Pilgrims and students, faith and folly, holy badgers and drunken Latin, all part of this night, this smoky hall, this endless rhythm. You close your eyes briefly, letting it settle into you. You notice her before you hear her, the alewife again, her strong shoulders cutting through the crowd as she carries a jug under one arm. Around her the tavern bends, voices lowering when her eyes pass, laughter softening at her frown. In this hall of smoke and noise, she is both servant and sovereign. But she is not alone. Look closer, and you see women everywhere, though rarely in the centre of notice. One carries bowls of stew, her steps careful on the rushes. Another scrubs at a sticky patch of table with a rag, her hands red and raw. A third leans against the wall, her cloak pulled close, eyes watching, waiting. Women in tavern life were common, though history too often left them in margins. Tonight you see their presence woven into every shadow, every gesture. The alewife paws, her face stern, her ladle steady. She is business itself, commanding coin and silence. You recall what records tell women brewed most ale in the Middle Ages, extending household labour into trade. They were fined, inspected, sometimes praised, often condemned. Sermons mocked them as cheats. Plays painted them as bawdy tricksters. Yet without them, taverns would falter. The ale you sip tonight is likely the work of her hands, her hearth, her skill. At the far bench, a serving girl delivers mugs. She cannot be more than 16, her face pale beneath torchlight. A man reaches for her sleeve, his fingers bold. She twists away, slipping between bodies, setting mugs down quickly. Laughter follows her, rough and mocking, but she keeps her head low, her pace quick. Survival for her is speed, invisibility, the ability to vanish before hands linger too long. You feel anger rise in you, but the tavern absorbs it without pause. This too is part of its rhythm. Not all women here serve. Some sit as patrons, mugs in hand. Two older women share a bench, their laughter loud, their cheeks flushed. One slaps the table with glee at a student's jest. The other sings snatches of an old song, her voice cracked but strong. They drink as freely as the men, their presence neither questioned nor ignored. Perhaps widows, perhaps workers, perhaps simply women with coin enough to claim their place. Yet, for every woman welcomed, another is whispered about. At a table near the door, men gossip of loose women haunting taverns, of sin sold in corners. The church railed against taverns for this reason, warning that women who lingered here must be harlots, temptations leading men astray. But history blurs truth and slander. Many women came simply to sell ale, to eat, to rest. Some may have traded bodies for coin, but far more traded only mugs and stew. Tonight, you cannot tell where rumour ends and reality begins. You see another figure, cloaked and quiet, sitting alone with a half-empty mug. Her hood shadows her face, but her posture is tense, wary. Men glance at her, whisper, some smirk. She does not look up. You wonder her story. A traveller seeking rest, a widow seeking warmth, or a woman judged before she speaks. History leaves her unnamed, yet you feel her presence as strongly as the dice rattling across tables. Near the hearth, a mother soothes her child. She dips bread into broth, feeds him slowly, her own bowl untouched. His eyes grow heavy, his head drooping against her arm. She hums softly, the tune nearly lost amid noise. No one notices her, but you do. For her, the tavern is not escape or pleasure, but shelter, a roof, a fire, a place where her child may sleep without frost biting his bones. The alewife passes again, collecting coins. She pauses at a table where two men argue, her hand slamming down between them. Her voice is low, firm, brooking no debate. They fall silent, chastened, their quarrels swallowed. You feel awe at her control. In a world where women were often silenced, here she commands with a glance. Yet control comes at cost. Court records show alewives fined, mocked, dunked in rivers for fraud or scolding. Plays of the time turn them into comic villains, greedy and loud. You wonder if those who laughed at such plays ever sat here, ever saw the strength required to run a tavern. Tonight, watching her, you doubt the caricatures. A minstrel sings again, softer now. His ballad tells of a maiden betrayed, of vows broken. Some women laugh bitterly, shaking their heads. One mutters that men sing of betrayal but rarely of burden. Her voice is sharp, her eyes tired. Her companion nods, sipping her mug. Their truth lingers longer than the minstrel's tune. The serving girl returns. Her tray lighter, she wipes her forehead, leaving a streak of grime. She glances toward the alewife, who nods briefly. For her that nod is approval, permission to breathe. You see her shoulders ease, if only for a moment, then she moves again, swallowed by the crowd. Women in taverns lived between roles. Brewer, server, mother, widow, patron. Some were mocked, some feared, some ignored. Yet all endured the same smoke, the same noise, the same judgments. You realize now how vital they were, how their labor and presence shaped this hall as much as any fire or song. You sip what remains in your mug, the ale flat now. You watch the alewife, the serving girl, the mothers, the patrons. You think of women in your own world, freer to choose, yet still judged in shadows of old echoes. The past lingers, as smoke lingers in rafters. The bell outside tolls again, muffled. Inside, the tavern hums on. Women move through it like threads in a tapestry, unseen by some, essential to all. You breathe the smoky air, taste the bitter ale, feel the truth settle in your chest. Without them, this tavern would fall silent. With them, it endures. The hour grows late. The bell outside tolls again, muffled by distance. But inside the tavern time is measured differently, by the emptying of jugs, by the droop of eyelids, by the shift in laughter from joy to menace. Nightfall outside thickens into mist and shadow. Within, the tavern grows heavier, its air more oppressive, its dangers sharper. The torches sputter low, their resin nearly burned through. Shadows deepen, crawling along beams and corners. The hearth still glows, but its flames sag, wood collapsing into embers. The stew pot bubbles faintly. Its sound softer now, as though the night itself presses silence upon it. You feel the change in your chest. The tavern is no longer the same room you entered. Faces shift in this dimness. Laughter slurs into mutters, smiles fade into scowls. A man leans too close, his breath sour with ale, his words sharp. Another scuffles past, elbowing hard, muttering curses. The press of bodies grows less friendly, more dangerous, as though the smoke itself thickens with suspicion. You think of chronicles that recorded tavern crimes, men stabbed for debts, women assaulted in corners, purses cut from belts. Darkness invited boldness, and drink fueled it. The law outside did not vanish, but inside, the hours after nightfall often belonged to impulse, to anger, to hunger, unrestrained. You sense that now, every sound sharper, every movement edged with threat. Near the door, two men whisper urgently. Their eyes dart to purses, to cloaks, to strangers, thieves perhaps, or men desperate enough to risk it. You shift your own cloak tighter, though you carry nothing worth stealing. Still, their gaze lingers on you too long, sliding away only when the alewife's ladle slams again on wood. Even she seems more alert now, her eyes sweeping the room, her shoulders squared. The mercenaries stir, their hands brushing sword hilts. They know this hour too well. Their eyes scan shadows, their ears tuned to mutters. They sit like wolves at the edge of the firelight, ready to bare teeth if needed. You feel both comfort and fear in their presence. They could protect you. They could also decide you are prey. A shout erupts at a bench. A student has toppled over, his mug shattering. Laughter follows, cruel and mocking. But one man curses, his cloak soaked by spilled ale. He rises, fist clenched. For a moment you fear another fight, but the student's companions drag him back, slapping his cheeks, laughing too loudly. The tension eases, but unease lingers. Your own mug is empty, and you hesitate to seek another. Each step across the tavern feels more perilous now, each stranger's glance more threatening. The alewife still pours, but slower, as though rationing for those who matter most. Perhaps she knows the night brings trouble, and full mugs only sharpen blades. A woman rises near the hearth, leading her child by the hand. She pulls him close, her eyes wary, her steps quick. She seeks the straw mats in the back, away from noise. Others watch her go, some with pity, some with something darker. You wonder how many mothers risked bringing children into such places, weighing danger against the cold streets outside. Tonight she chose fire over frost. Tomorrow, who knows? The smell has shifted too. The stew thins, its richness gone, leaving only watery broth. The ale grows sourer, its dregs stirred from the bottom of casks. Sweat and smoke overwhelm all else. The tavern stinks now of fatigue, of bodies too long pressed together, of hunger unsatisfied. You inhale, cough, wish for air, but none comes. You think of your own world, where night often means safety. Lamps lit, doors locked, patrols watching. Here, night is a predator. Taverns offered shelter, but also risk. A man could wake poorer, beaten, even dead. Chronicles mention bodies found in ditches, their last night spent in laughter and ale. You shiver, though the fire still warms your skin. A sudden crash startles you. A bench has tipped, a man sprawled, his companion curses, kicking him half-heartedly. Others laugh, some jeer, one spits. The man groans, too drunk to rise. He will sleep there, on rushes stained with ale and dirt, unless someone drags him out. No one does. His snores soon join the tavern's hum, another note in its weary song. You edge toward the wall, pressing your back against timber, darkened with centuries of smoke. From here you see more clearly, the dice still rattling, the wine still poured for a chosen few, the stew ladled in thinner scoops. But you also see shadows shifting at the edges, hands slipping too easily toward purses, eyes lingering too long on strangers. You keep your own hands close, your gaze wary. The alewife raises her voice suddenly, sharp as steel. She orders a man to leave, her ladle pointing like a weapon. He protests, but two mercenaries rise, and his courage drains. He staggers out, muttering, the door groaning behind him. The tavern exhales once more, tension easing briefly, but the danger remains, thick as smoke. Your throat is dry, but you hesitate to drink more. All blurs senses, and here, clarity is survival. You think of modern nights, where water flows freely, where warmth comes without risk. Here, each swallow carries weight. Each hour past dark grows heavier with threat. The fire sputters low. Someone adds wood, sparks rising, shadows leaping. For a moment, the room brightens and faces seem softer, laughter genuine. Then the wood settles, the flames dim, and darkness swallows them again. The cycle repeats, light, shadow, like breath, like warning. You close your eyes briefly, listening, snoring, muttering, whispers. The tavern grows tired, yet restless. You wonder if you will sleep here tonight, on straw, among strangers. You wonder if sleep itself is safe. When you open your eyes, the alewife is watching. Her gaze is steady, unreadable. She nods once, almost imperceptibly, as if to say, stay alert, endure. Then she turns back to her work, ladle steady, shoulders firm. The night deepens. The dangers grow sharper, yet you remain pressed against the wall, your breath slow, your heart steady. The tavern holds you still. For better or worse, The tavern you sit in tonight breathes with the pulse of a city, crowded, smoky, loud. Yet as the embers crackle lower and your thoughts grow heavy, your mind drifts outward, beyond the walls, beyond the alleys, into the dark countryside. The contrast between city tavern and village alehouse stretches wide, yet both beat to the same rhythm of ale, fire, and survival. In the city, benches creak beneath dozens of strangers, cloaks brush yours, voices clash, mugs slam in endless rhythm. The smell is overwhelming. Sweat, smoke, stew, stale rushes, dice clatter, coins jingle, curses fly. Here, anonymity shields you. No one knows your name, no one cares, except for the alewife counting your coin. Danger lurks in shadows, thieves and quarrels as common as laughter. Yet opportunity lingers too. News from ports, rumours of war, chance encounters that might change a life. Now picture the countryside. You step through a smaller door, ducking beneath a low lintel. Inside, silence greets you first, broken only by the crackle of a modest fire. A single table sits at the centre, perhaps 2 benches at most. Fewer than 10 souls fill the space. They all turn when you enter, their eyes sharp, weighing stranger against neighbour. Here no one is faceless. Your name will be asked before the mug is poured, and your story will be remembered long after you leave. The ale tastes different too. In the city it is brewed often, consumed quickly, barrels replaced daily. Here in the countryside ale comes from a single household. The alewife brews it herself in her yard, stirred in cauldrons once used for soup. It is thick, cloudy, alive with yeast. Sometimes sour, sometimes sweet, always uncertain. Payment may not be coin but eggs, a scrap of cloth, a promise of labour at harvest. The mug you hold might have been carved by her husband, the wood rough, the rim splintered. In the city, wine flows for the chosen. Merchants sip Bordeaux, nobles demand Burgundy. Inspectors arrive, fines imposed, law always near. In the countryside, wine is unheard of. Ale is all, sometimes cider, sometimes mead. If bees have been kind, the variety is narrow, but the simplicity sharpens. You drink what the land gives, and nothing more. The food differs as well. City taverns offer stews fed by scraps from markets, sometimes meat, sometimes fish, flavoured with onions, garlic, pepper, if merchants are generous. In villages, stew is thinner, beans and cabbage stretched to fill bowls, meat comes rarely, perhaps a rabbit caught in a snare, a chicken slaughtered for feast days, bread is coarse, baked from rye or barley, darker and heavier than the wheat loaves wealthier city dwellers prize. You taste soil in each bite, earth itself ground into sustenance. The company is different too. In the city, strangers crowd shoulder to shoulder, mercenaries, pilgrims, students, traders, stories swirl, accents clash, quarrels ignite. In the countryside, company is kin and neighbour. The man beside you was in the fields this morning. The woman serving you helped deliver your neighbour's child last week. Every laugh echoes in memory. Every insult will linger long after the night ends. Fights are rarer, not because tempers burn cooler, but because grudges burn longer. A broken bench or bloodied nose might mean ruined harvests when neighbours refuse to share tools. Restraint, born of necessity, shapes the rural tavern. The sounds differ as well. In the city, music fills the air. Minstrels earning coins, voices raised in bawdy ballads. In the countryside, a fiddle or pipe may appear, but more often the songs are work chants, harvest rhymes, lullabies sung low as mugs pass. The quiet is heavier, pierced by bursts of laughter, but not the constant roar of a city hall. The silence itself is company, a shared acceptance of weariness. You think of light. In the city tavern, torches blaze, resin dripping, smoke filling rafters. In the countryside, only a single fire burns, perhaps a rushlight dipped in grease. Shadows dominate, faces half hidden. When the fire dims, the night presses close, stars visible through cracks in the roof. Darkness rules sooner, heavier. Yet it feels safer somehow, the silence holding you like a cloak. Records speak of alehouses marked by simple signs. A broom hung above the door, a branch leaning outward, a picture painted crudely on wood. No grand signboards, no heraldry, only simple symbols known to neighbours. You imagine walking down a country lane, torch in hand, seeing a branch swaying above a low doorway, the promise of warmth and ale within. You wonder where you would rather sit. In the city, noise and danger, but also possibility, the thrill of anonymity, the chance to hear news from beyond the seas. In the countryside, safety and silence, but also scrutiny. Every action remembered. Would you prefer to vanish in the crowd or belong in the gaze of neighbours? Tonight, you remain in the city. Smoke thick, voices loud, dice rattling still. Yet your mind drifts outward, imagining the quiet alehouse, its small hearth, its single bench. Both are taverns, both serve ale, both shape lives. Yet their differences mark the divide between urban and rural, between chaos and intimacy. The bell outside tolls again. In the city, it signals another hour of noise. In the countryside, it might already mean sleep. Fires doused, mugs emptied, beds shared with kin. The rhythm of night differs, yet both bind men and women to ale, to company, to the endless cycle of work and rest. You sip your mug, taste the city in it. Sour, sharp, hurried. You imagine the countryside's ale, slower, thicker, more patient. Both nourish, both sustain, both hold danger of their own. The fire before you spits, sparks flying, shadows leap, laughter rises, quarrels simmer. You open your eyes fully again, grounded once more in the crowded hall. The city's tavern hums, restless, alive, a beast too large to ever truly sleep. You sit in the smoky hall, the city's tavern alive around you, yet your thoughts drift beyond these walls across seas and rivers into other lands. What would it feel like to push open the door of a French tavern, or a German wirtshaus, or a Spanish venta? The rhythm of ale and fire binds them all, but each region has its own flavours, its own customs, its own dangers. Imagine first that you cross the channel. In France, a tavern is typically referred to as a taverne or an auberge, with its sign swinging above the street in Paris or Rouen. The smell of wine greets you before you step inside. Not ale, not sour or yeasty, but wine, red, white, sometimes watered, sometimes spiced. A cask rests behind the counter, tapped carefully, sealed with wax to prove it has not been tampered with. French records tell of taverns so numerous that officials tried to restrict them, fearing disorder. But they thrived, their benches filled with clerks, soldiers, merchants. Inside, the language swirls differently. Voices rise in Old French, sharper, faster, peppered with words you do not know. The songs sound familiar yet strange, ballads of knights and saints, but with melodies that dance lighter than the English ones you heard earlier. You taste bread here too, but finer. Wheat loaves if you can pay, darker rye if not. The stew smells of garlic and herbs, stronger than the simple cabbage and turnip of England. Each spoonful carries the echo of southern kitchens, of spices brought from the Mediterranean. Now your mind drifts eastward into the German lands. There the wirtshaus waits. You push open its heavy door, stepping into a hall both similar and different. The air is thicker, filled with the smell of beer, real beer, brewed with hops. Germans embraced hops earlier than England, giving their drink a bitter edge, sharper, longer lasting. You sip, and the taste is stronger, firmer, holding its freshness longer than ale. The mugs are heavy, carved from stoneware, their weight solid in your hand. Here the crowd is loud, their laughter booming, their songs rough and hearty. A fiddler scrapes in the corner, his bow soaring, while boots pound against planks in time. The food is heartier too, sausages sizzling, salted meats piled high, cabbage boiled until it softens. You eat with your fingers, grease coating them, then wipe them against rough cloth. The Wirtshaus is both tavern and inn, offering beds above or beside, straw mattresses shared by travellers. You smell the sweat of horses outside, hear their hooves shifting in the yard. Yet danger lingers here as well. Records from Nuremberg and Augsburg mention brawls in Wirtshäuser, knives flashing, blood spilled. Town councils impose strict hours, ordering taverns to close at curfew, bells tolling to drive drinkers home. Still, men lingered, their songs turning into quarrels, their laughter into blows. The rhythm of risk remains the same, only the flavour of drink changing. Your thoughts move south, across the Alps, into Italy. There the osteria calls. Its door opens onto a courtyard where vines creep up stone walls, their leaves rustling in night air, lanterns glow, casting softer light than torches, their oil scented faintly with herbs. Inside, the tables are spread wider, the air clearer, yet the hum of voices is the same. The drink is wine, always wine, sometimes red so dark it glistens like blood, sometimes white sharp as lemon. You sip, and it is sweeter, smoother than what you tasted in the English hall. The food is different too. Bread brushed with oil, cheese sliced thick, olives brined in salt. Stews appear as well, but with tomatoes absent still, their flavours built from beans, lentils, pork. Men debate politics here, voices sharp, hands slicing air. Merchants speak of ships in Genoa, of papal decrees in Rome, of wars rising across city-states. The osteria is not only a tavern, but a theatre of talk, of ideas, of intrigue. Farther west, into Spain, you find the Venta, a roadside inn on dusty tracks, its walls whitewashed, its roof red tile, travellers on horseback dismount, leading mules to water. Inside, the air smells of garlic and roasted lamb, of bread baking in clay ovens. The drink is wine, rough and strong, drawn from skins rather than barrels. You sip, and the leather tang mingles with grape, earthy and raw. Here the company is mixed. Muleteers, pilgrims to Santiago, soldiers marching toward Granada. Their accents clash, their tempers flare, but the Venta holds them all. Beds are few, often nothing more than straw spread across the floor. You lie close to strangers, hearing their snores, smelling their sweat, clutching your purse against theft. Yet the fire burns, the wine warms, the food fills. The Venta is no less tavern than any smoky hall in England. Across Europe, taverns, inns, alehouses, and their kin bore different names, different drinks, different flavours. But step inside, and you would know them instantly. The press of bodies, the heat of fire, the rattle of dice, the laughter and quarrels. Whether in London or Lubeck, in Rouen or Rome, the rhythm was the same. Company, coin, danger, survival. You imagine yourself moving from one to another, your senses shifting. In France, the sharpness of garlic and wine. In Germany, the bitterness of hops and sausage. In Italy, the smooth sweetness of olives and cheese. In Spain, the raw tang of wineskins and lamb. Each different, each alive, yet all bound to the same truth. Humanity gathered together, hungry for warmth, food, drink, and each other. The tavern around you hums still, but now you hear its echoes across the continent. You see how wide the tradition spreads, how deeply it roots in soil and city alike. Your mug feels heavier in your hand, as though it carries not only ale but centuries of custom, thousands of miles of roads, countless lives. The fire pops again, pulling you back to this hall, to this bench, to the smell of sour ale and stew. But in your mind, the tavern is larger now, its walls stretching across Europe, its voices speaking many tongues, its mugs filled with many drinks. And you sit among them all, a traveller moving through space and time, carried by firelight and song. A friar once thundered that taverns were the devil's chapel, their benches altars to gluttony, their mugs chalices of damnation. You can almost hear his voice echoing in your ears, sermons warning that each swallow of ale invited temptation, tales of angels leaving when dice were thrown. of demons whispering through ballads. Yet the friar himself sat here earlier, his mug drained, his voice slurred, hypocrisy as common as smoke. You lean against the bench, the weight of your mug steady in your hand, and your mind drifts to the stories told about places like this. For centuries, chroniclers, priests, poets, and playwrights painted taverns as nests of sin, dens of debauchery, homes only for gamblers, thieves, and women of ill repute. Yet here you sit, and you see something more complex. The myths cling to taverns like smoke to rafters, but the truth lies heavier, messier, human. Playwrights, too, made taverns their stage, in ballads and morality tales. The alewife was a cheat, the serving girl a temptress, the drinkers fools wasting their wages. The laughter was cruel, the lessons sharp. Audiences nodded, convinced that real taverns must be the same. You picture the crowd outside this very hall, shaking their heads in judgment, imagining only sin inside. But you see mothers feeding children here, travellers resting weary feet, pilgrims whispering prayers, merchants sealing trade. One myth lingers strongest, that taverns were places only of excess, of drunken men rolling under tables, of endless brawls. And yes, you have seen quarrels tonight, knives flashing, mugs spilling. You have smelled ale souring on breath, seen men stumble, seen tempers rise, but you have also seen laughter genuine, kindness in mugs, shared warmth in bowls passed from hand to hand. For every fight there was a song, for every slur a prayer murmured. The truth is both, tangled together. Another stereotype paints taverns as homes of lust, where women sold themselves as freely as ale. The whispers tonight hinted at it. The cloaked woman alone, the serving girl dodging hands, the laughter rough and mocking. And yet you have also seen women working, commanding, surviving. The alewife's authority cannot be dismissed as sin. The mother by the hearth hums her child to sleep. The older women laugh at songs, their mugs as full as any man's. Not saints, not devils, simply human, carving survival from smoky air. Travellers' tales, too, coloured taverns with exaggeration. Some spoke of wild debauchery, men gambling away farms, women dancing naked by firelight, priests brawling with soldiers. Others spoke of poison in mugs, of witches stirring stews, of ghosts haunting rafters. You look around now and see none of those phantoms. You see hunger, weariness, joy and danger. More ordinary, more believable, no less powerful. Why did myths grow so thick? Perhaps because taverns frightened those who wrote about them. Clerics feared their hold on souls. Lords feared gatherings of common men. Husbands feared wives who brewed and sold independently. Myths controlled, warned, mocked. They turned the tavern into a symbol, not a place. Yet here you sit, and the symbol fades. Reality hums louder than sermon. You recall a tale told of an alewife dragged to hell, her sins too great to pardon, carved in woodcuts, painted in manuscripts, her soul weighed down by jugs and ladles. The lesson was clear, drink and deceit damned all. But you remember her face tonight, stern and steady, holding the tavern together when knives flashed. Would she deserve hell, or survival's weary grace? A student beside you slurs a joke about taverns being schools of sin. His companions laugh, pounding the table. Their Latin is broken, their wit clumsy, but their cheer real. They do not care what chroniclers write. They care only for tonight's warmth, for mugs that dull hunger, for benches that hold them upright. The minstrel strikes a tune again, lighter this time. His ballad mocks lords and ladies, praising common folk who outwit the proud. The room cheers, mugs lifted. This too is a stereotype broken. Taverns not only dens of sin, but stages of resistance, where laughter undermined power, where songs carried truths forbidden in courts. The myths painted taverns as dangerous, yet you realize danger was half the point. In a world of cold homes, dark streets, empty bellies, taverns promised heat, noise, company. They were dangerous, yes, but so was the world outside. A ditch could kill as easily as a knife. A storm could ruin as surely as a brawl. The tavern did not create danger. It merely concentrated it, wrapping it with laughter and song. Your own mug is nearly empty. You stare into it at dregs swirling. Chroniclers would say those dregs hold sin, that to drain them is to fall, but you know they also hold calories, warmth, a moment of relief, sin or survival. Which truth is greater? You sip, and the taste answers itself. The fire cracks, sparks leaping. You close your eyes briefly, letting sound and scent wash over you. You feel the myths dissolve, leaving only this hall, these voices, this moment, imperfect, dangerous, necessary. You breathe deep, smoke filling your chest. Myths swirl around you like shadows, but you see clearly now, the tavern is no devil's chapel, no endless orgy, no cartoon of sin. It is rougher, simpler, harder, a place where hunger meets stew, thirst meets ale, loneliness meets company, a place where law and chaos wrestle, where faith and folly drink side by side, not myth but life itself, in all its dirt and laughter. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It directly supports the channel and keeps these long journeys alive. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you listening from? And what time is it there right now? You sit with your back against the smoke-darkened wall, your mug empty now, your breath heavy with ale and heat. Yet as the noise hums around you, your mind drifts forward, beyond this century, beyond this hall, into echoes that still live in your own world. So much of what surrounds you here, the mugs, the benches, the laughter, the quarrels, will survive in some form, carried like embers into the hearths of modern pubs. You hear the clink of mugs and feel how familiar it is. Centuries from now, glasses will meet in the same ritual. Though clearer, brighter, their rims smooth, their shapes tall, the toast endures, a gesture of unity, of trust, of shared belonging. Tonight the mugs are wood or pewter, cloudy with foam, sticky with spills. In your world they will be glass and polished steel, but the meaning is unchanged. You raise, you drink, you belong. The benches creak beneath bodies pressed close. The discomfort of wood, the ache of back and hip, feels eternal. Yet even in modern pubs you know the press of bodies at crowded tables, the noise of strangers sharing space, the way discomfort becomes company. Upholstered chairs, cushioned booths, they soften, but they do not erase the core to sit together, to share warmth, to merge into the hum of the room. The stew pot bubbles still, its scent faint but steady. In your world, no perpetual stew hangs over fires, but the idea lingers in pub fare, pies, soups, curries, meals thick and filling. You see it clearly, the shepherd's pie steaming, the fish and chips wrapped in grease, the Sunday roast carved for families, all echoes of survival food, born from stews stretched with beans and bones. Tonight's broth becomes tomorrow's comfort dish. Even the ale in your mug speaks forward. In this hall it is cloudy, yeasty, sour, brewed quickly, consumed within days. In your time, ale and beer are crafted with care, hops preserving, flavours measured, alcohol content predictable. Yet the ritual is the same. The anticipation of froth, the first swallow warming chest and throat, the slow uncoiling of tension. The lineage of your pint stretches back to this smoky jug. The songs you heard tonight echo too, ballads of knights, of millers, of saints. They will fade, replaced by new lyrics, new melodies, yet the impulse endures, voices rising together, stories turned into rhythm, strangers united in chorus. In modern pubs, football chants roar, folk songs linger, jukeboxes spin tunes. The instruments change, the melodies shift, but the need to sing, to bind voices into one, remains. Even the myths survive. The church called taverns nests of sin. Playwrights mocked alewives. Chroniclers painted drinkers as fools. In your world, echoes ring in jokes about drunkenness, in stereotypes of pubs as places of waste. In tales of bar fights and folly, the fear of excess never vanished. It only adapted, wearing new clothes, sung in new accents. But so too does the kindness endure. You remember the mother feeding her child, the pilgrim receiving stew, the stranger handing you his mug. In your own time you know the kindness of a pint bought for a friend, of food shared across a table, of warmth offered to someone weary. Hospitality outlives judgment. The tavern's soul persists. You glance at the door, its hinges groaning with every use. Centuries from now, doors will still creak, still open onto noise and warmth, still promise shelter from rain and frost. Signs will hang above, no longer broomsticks or branches, but painted boards with names: the Red Lion, the King's Arms, the Swan. Names repeated across generations, across towns, as though taverns carry memory in their very titles. And yet, not all is the same. In your world, law will tame some dangers. Inspectors with ladles vanish, replaced by licenses and regulations. Fires that once consumed whole streets are curbed by chimneys and codes. Women fined and mocked as alewives become publicans. Landlords, owners of pubs respected or mocked in equal measure. Yet the lineage is clear. Each pint poured in your world carries the ghost of her ladle, each counter her scarred wood. You breathe deeply, smoke filling your chest. You imagine the taste of a modern pint, bitter with hops, clean on the tongue, far from this sour, yeasty brew. Yet you feel the same warmth spread through your belly, the same loosening of shoulders, the same invitation to belong. Time shifts, but the body's response endures. The tavern around you grows louder again, voices rising, laughter cresting. You wonder if someone centuries ahead might sit in a pub, pint in hand, thinking of you as you think of them now, threads woven backward and forward, mugs raised across time. The fire cracks, sparks flying, shadows leap, laughter swells. You close your eyes briefly, letting sound and smell anchor you. In this moment, the tavern is both ancient and familiar. You could step outside into a cobbled street, or into a neon-lit alley. The hum would greet you the same. You open your eyes, your mug empty still, your hand sticky with ale. You realize that the tavern is eternal. Its forms shift, its drinks change, its names multiply, but the need it serves, warmth, company, release, never dies. You sit in its heart tonight, and you will sit there again, in another century, another form, another name. The bell outside tolls once more. Inside, the tavern does not heed it. The echoes of modern pubs hum already in its beams, its benches, its mugs. You are part of that echo now, carried forward, raised in every pint yet to come. The night deepens. The bell outside tolls once more, though few here count its strikes. Time inside the tavern is measured differently by the last jug poured, by the lull of dice rattling to silence, by the way voices sink from laughter into murmurs. The hall you entered so many hours ago is no longer the same. The smoke hangs lower, the fire glows dimmer, and the energy that once roared now flickers like the embers themselves. The alewife wipes her brow, her sleeves damp, her shoulders heavy. She has poured since dusk, watched quarrels rise and fall, fed bellies hungry and desperate. Now she moves slower, her motions deliberate, steadying the tavern toward its end. She snuffs one torch, then another, their smoke curling upward. The shadows lengthen with each darkened flame. You sit still, your mug long emptied, your body weary. Around you, some drinkers slouch against benches, their snores loud, their mouths slack. Others stagger toward the door, cloaks dragged carelessly, boots stumbling. A few linger, muttering, unwilling to yield the night. The tavern holds them all, but only for a while longer. The stew pot hangs quiet, its broth nearly gone. What remains is thick, scraps clinging to the bottom, ladle scraping dregs. A boy gathers bowls, stacking them unevenly, broth sloshing onto his arms. His eyes are half closed, his steps unsteady. Still he works, knowing the night ends only when the fire cools, and the last bowl is cleared. The air smells different now. Less of food, less of fresh ale, more of sweat, stale drink, and cooling ash. It clings to your cloak, your skin, your hair. You know you will carry this scent into the night, into sleep, perhaps into memory. The tavern leaves its mark as surely as the smoke stains its beams. Near the door, the mercenaries stir. They have sat watchful all night, hands near swords, eyes scanning shadows. Now they rise, stretch, and prepare to leave. Their work is never done, but the tavern no longer needs their presence. Their boots strike hard against the rushes, and then they are gone, the door groaning shut behind them. The pilgrims sleep already, curled on straw in the corner, their breaths slow, their bodies motionless. One clutches his badge even in sleep, fingers wrapped tight around it, as if fearing it stolen. The students sprawl at their bench, their books forgotten, their mugs overturned. Their snores mingle with the pilgrims' sighs, a strange harmony of devotion and folly. The alewife moves again, snuffing another torch. The darkness thickens. The crowd thins. She scolds one man too slow to rise. Her voice sharp. He grumbles, but he obeys, dragging himself to the door. She watches him go, then bars it from within, the heavy wood thudding into place. The tavern is closed. You feel the change at once. The noise drops, the air stills, the night presses closer. The world outside is shut away, its dangers held at bay by wood and bar. Inside, only the chosen few remain, sleepers, workers. The hall feels different now, quieter, safer, though not entirely. The darkness carries its own weight. You shift, stretching your limbs. Weariness seeps deep, heavier than any hunger or thirst. You glance at the fire, its flames collapsed into red glow. It crackles faintly, but its heat is weaker now. A log shifts, sparks rising, then fading quickly. The room grows cooler, shadows stretching across your skin. The alewife gathers her children, the girl who carried jugs, the boy who scraped bowls. They lean against her, exhausted, their eyes drooping. She strokes their hair briefly, before sending them toward the back room. For them this night ends not with sleep, but with chores still undone. Cleaning, scraping, banking the fire. Their sighs sound too old for their years. Yet tomorrow they will rise again, ready to pour, ready to serve. You remain on the bench, your breath slow, your mind heavy. The tavern around you feels fragile now, stripped of its roar, left only with its bones, wood, ash, silence. Yet those bones hold strong, as they have for centuries, as they will for centuries more. This hall is one among thousands, yet each carries the same truth. People gathered, people endured. The last torch sputters, then dies. Only the hearth glows faintly, painting the room in dim red. The alewife sits briefly, her body sinking, her eyes closing for a heartbeat. Then she rises again, banking the fire, covering the pot, tidying what must be tidied. Her rhythm does not stop until the tavern itself sleeps. You feel your own body giving in. Your eyelids grow heavy, your breath slower, deeper around you. Snores rise, the soft murmur of dreams beginning. The tavern no longer hums. It whispers. The night has claimed it. You close your eyes briefly, then open them again. One last glance. The beams above, black with smoke. The benches scarred, sticky, with centuries of mugs. The door barred, the shutters closed. The tavern sleeps, and you with it. The tavern fades. The voices that filled it slip into silence, their laughter distant, their quarrels forgotten. The smoke thins into mist, drifting away until the rafters vanish and the air grows clear. The weight of the bench eases, the sticky wood beneath your hands dissolves. Even the taste of ale fades from your tongue, leaving only warmth behind. You are safe now. No knives flash in shadow, no torches gutter, no eyes linger with suspicion. The door is closed, the shutters drawn, and the night outside cannot touch you. The fire shrinks to embers. then to coals, then to nothing at all. Its glow lingers gently in your chest, steady and calm, softer than any flame. Your breath slows. Inhale, steady, deep. Exhale, long, quiet. Each cycle carries you further from noise, further from smoke, further into stillness. The clatter of mugs, the rattle of dice, the crack of quarrels, all dissolve into memory, then into dream. What remains is only peace. You drift as though carried on a tide, the sound of distant bells soft as lullabies. The tavern has let you go, and with it the centuries. The floor beneath you is no longer rushes, no longer dirt, but the softness of your bed. Blankets wrap you like a cloak, pillows cradle your head, as though you have travelled farther than time itself to arrive here, safe and whole. The world outside grows dim, soundless. Nothing presses, nothing demands. You are warm, you are still, you are free. The stories of taverns fade into shadow, leaving only comfort, leaving only quiet. You are safe now. The journey is complete. The night holds you gently. Sweet dreams.